Hey folks, how's it going?
I feel like this should be a dramatic announcement, something after these 30 seconds. Like,
I was like, am I meant
Yeah,
to pose or something?
yeah.
like all for your stream is stuck. Well, welcome everybody. This is almost 3 hour office hours, so you can ask us any questions. There are some familiar faces. My name is Sohan. I'm a developer advocate based out of the Netherlands. And yes, Daco, Chris, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Chris, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you can hear me. My name is Chris. I'm a developer advocate. Just joined the team in the last, not quite 2 months. Based in Munich, in Germany, but I'm from Australia.
And my name is Darko. I'm also a developer advocate, as the two lovely folks with me here on stream. I'm based in Berlin, Germany. Originally from Serbia, hence the weird names. I cover Central and Eastern Europe. And I've been with AWS for almost 5 years. Almost time for the new yellow badge. So happy to see that. And welcome everybody to the Q&A.
So is it
folks.
unusual for you, Darko, to present with people who have hair?
Yeah, so I'm trying to, I'm used to have bald people around me. I'm sorry, Sohan, it has to go.
Oh man. All that hair conditioner I just bought, I have to throw it out.
It's going to be good for the beard. That's fine.
Okay.
So how is the event going along? How are you enjoying it?
Yes, so folks, this is in parallel with Community Day in the Netherlands, which is happening now live, in fact. And I think Dr. Ferner Vogels is doing a Q&A right now. So, if you're bored of us, go check that event out. But if you're coming from that event, if you have any questions, feel free to ask us in the chat. We're here for a while, so, hit us up with any questions you all might have, or just, tell us where you're viewing from. Yeah. We'd love to hear from you.
And also, if you want the store brand version of Werner, I'm also bald. I have a beard and I have a belly, so I can scream at you as well if you want. So yeah. Hey, Satya is here. Hey, Satya.
Hey, Satya. So Chris, how's your weekend? I know you were fighting a little bit with AWS Light Sale.
Oh, that was on Friday. Mm-hmm. Then I sorted it and I went traveling. I went to the Alps. And, after you've been staring at a computer all week long, it's very nice to get out in the mountains and breathe some fresh air.
Yeah, my God.
I
saw the photos. I saw the photos you were at Zugspitze, right?
Yeah, Zugspitze. And we had beautiful weather on Sunday, actually, as well.
Yeah. Hi, hello, David. Hey, hi. Darko for the win? No. Nah. Oh man. Okay, cool.
Yeah. What about you, Darko? How was your weekend?
I've actually spent the weekend recording. I've been doing my recording a talk that's happening tomorrow, actually tonight in Australia. So I want to wake up at 1 a.m. and do my Q&A in Australia. So that should be fun. So I did a talk about testing software on AWS, or actually how to achieve resiliency with proper testing tools. And I got to read this book. I had this Test-Driven Development by Mr. Kent Beck. It's the book on test-driven development. So I learned a lot while preparing this talk. So that was pretty fun. Yeah. Nice. Satya asked me, do I get to ask about Werner? Yeah, I had people not ask me if I'm Werner, but joking at me like, you're going to be the next Werner. You have the looks. So I don't think it's the looks what it takes to be Werner, but yeah. Yeah. What about you, Sohan? What was your fun for the weekend?
Oh, I was actually working because Chris and I are working, part of a team that's working on a series. So I was fighting a little bit with ELB and ALB and all of that. But I learned a lot. Again, I don't come from too much of a DevOps background. So I learned a bit about path-based routing using ALB. And Darko, you're like the expert at this. So maybe you can tell us more about it. But it's really cool. I mean, it's so easy. That's the thing that blew my mind. I clicked a few buttons, hit like...
Yeah, and that's kind of a point. So I mean, using one in the past, people would tend to use like a bunch of load balancers for different things, and now when you have like application load balancers, I remember a time where there were no application load balancers. Now that you have an application load balancer, you can actually have multiple applications behind a single load balancer and just do path-based routing, depending if it's /about/user/ whatever. You will actually route the traffic to either other EC2 instances or Lambda functions or whatever. So. There's an interesting question from Altai. Altai B. Hussein. Anyone can be AWS consultant. Wait. Yes. You have yes, absolutely. But I think it requires some experience. And I must say that well, actually, to be a good consultant, you need a lot of experience. But getting experience in AWS is pretty fun because of the variety of things you can do in AWS or with AWS. I think it's a really nice way to move to that direction, at least from my experience so far.
Didn't we? I'm trying to find the name of it. We introduced just you can look up and find independent consultants, not partners. These are actual people who are just experienced with AWS. What is it called?
IQ, Amazon IQ.
It's just slipped my mind. IQ, not Genius. I was thinking IQ. You're right, IQ.
Yeah. So IQ is the thing that you can use to actually be a part of that program where people can use Amazon IQ, or I'm not sure how that actually works, but basically you can hire consultants and experts to do AWS stuff for you. So.
And if you are one, you can offer your services.
Correct. So I think that's a very neat thing because. So I used to work in support for 2 years, and one of the most common questions is like, where can we get people to pay to do AWS for us? Of course, back then IQ didn't exist. I think professional services existed, but like what is it called? The managed services, the people.
ProServe, is that ProServe?
ProServe, yeah. But there's the other thing that existed.
AMS, managed services.
Exactly. Yeah, we used to call it Sentinel for some reason. And yeah, they just basically came up back then. So yeah. All right, we have Mixer here again. Okay, hi. Hello, everybody. Yeah. Hi.
Hey, Mixer. Hey, Ajitasha. Hello.
Ajitasha. Hey.
I think that's a fairly common problem, Darko. I mean, back in Australia where I was as well, what partners there were would be super busy because a lot of people know that, they want to move to cloud. They just don't have the skills in-house.
Yeah.
And we need more consultants. So whoever it was who asked that question, please become one. We need more of you.
Exactly. It is. I think it's a very lucrative position in the sense that you will have a lot of opportunities to work. So yeah, a lot of people run on the cloud. A lot of people need experts to tell them how to run on the cloud, especially because, and this is a fun fact for me. I mean, it should have been obvious, but 76% of our customers are running hybrid solutions. You know why? Because everybody who's migrating at one point runs hybrid. So I'm not saying that people who are all fully into just doing hybrid, but every customer at one point is hybrid, right? So minus the ones which are not, but most customers are hybrid at one point, and we see a lot of migrations to AWS. So hence the bigger needs for consultants and folks who know what to do on AWS. So yeah, if you come from that background, and especially if you come from migrations, that's a good place to be in.
Yeah, we have Julian here in the chat. Julian's a colleague, by the way. He's SA, I think. SA, yes,
Julian.
In the Benelux team. Hey, Julian, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, folks who just joined us, we are doing this in parallel with Community Day in the Netherlands. If you have any questions that you want to ask us, feel free to hit us up in chat. We're here for a while. We have Chris and Darko as well, so feel free to hit us up.
Yeah, we are happy to answer your questions and we'll potentially discuss technical topics that you've observed on the event. Now, actually, it could be a good chance for me to actually review the agenda because I haven't had a chance to view the agenda. So, a lot of great talks by a lot of great people. I recognize a lot of these names, and I see that there's, of course, a lot of CDK coming up at 2:30. There's some AI, serverless, of course, EKS.
I saw you had Goose talking about machine learning. I love Goose. He's such a fantastic speaker. Talking about how he solved his wife's fashion problem with artificial intelligence. Yeah, I've seen him speak. He's really good. He told about how he tried to use machine learning once to name his baby when his wife was pregnant.
Really?
She did not like any of the names it generated.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, no. But how was that? I actually missed the chance to view the keynote. I see that we had a few interesting folks here. Folks from HeliCloud and PostNL, but also we had Corey Quinn, and we had Werner. Did you have a chance to see? Like, I wanna hear the Corey Quinn story.
He live tweeted his talk, by the way. I think he's automated parts of it, which is pretty cool. So when he was like saying something, it would like tweet out with like a video link and stuff. So you can just go to his Twitter and recap a lot of it, which is pretty cool.
We should start doing that, live tweeting our talks. Man, that's a very interesting thing. Oh, cool. And I guess it was very interesting for Werner because this is his home country, right?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Local community day. How many people did join? I mean, it seems like a really big event.
It is, yeah. I don't know actually how many. Probably we'll get that later. But yeah, it was that, yeah. In fact, Dr. Ferner did speak about how he had moved to an apartment in the Amsterdam area just before the lockdown, and he was actually stuck here for a while. I remember he had tweeted out saying, "Hey, does anyone have like an extra controller for my Dreamcast or something?" And a bunch of people like, "Here, take mine." Yeah.
But nice.
You could have lent him a Commodore 64, Darko. What do you know?
Exactly, or an Amiga, or a 128, or a ZX Spectrum. I have all. I am running out of space. That's my problem.
So Darko, do you like seek these out on eBay type websites, or have you just collected them over the?
Mix and match. I have some of them which I have. Like I have my Commodore 64, which I owned since I was 4. And it still works. And it's my first computer ever. This is the computer where I learned to program. The rest I kind of buy. Now, the problem right now is if you go on eBay and they will just scalp you. Like they would charge, like you can buy an Amiga 2000 for 4,000 euros, right? That's just ridiculous what they charge. So usually because I come from Serbia, hence I sometimes go back home and just scour the local flea markets and try to find somebody who doesn't know what's selling and try to get those things. And this has actually brought me to a situation where back home in Serbia, I have a full room of old electronics. It's very difficult to transport over to Germany, so I'm just collecting stuff back home. One day, when I get a car, I'm going to ship the stuff over. But yeah.
So see, if I had known you ahead of time, because when we packed up our house in Australia, my husband unearthed a collection of brand new unopened ZX Spectrum games that he'd had since he was a kid, including there's one that was The Hobbit, which I don't know if you ever played that game. I looked it up on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
One of the people who created it, Veronica Megler, she works for us.
Really?
I looked her up and messaged her. She's a principal data scientist at AWS.
Wow.
She's really cool. And so I actually sent her a message and said, "Hey, I'm just a fan from Australia." And she actually hooked us up with a museum in Australia, and we donated the games before we left.
That's very good. That's very good.
What a small world. How cool is that?
Yeah. I have a collection of ZX Spectrum games somewhere here, all boxed. So I also have those things. I'm just a fan of the retro ones. I always tell this to people so that if they start throwing away stuff, they let me know. So it always sneaks. That's why I always kind of sneak my old computers into conversations so people can. I know a guy who likes the junk, and then they would potentially either sell it to me or donate. So, but it's amazing that she works for us. Wow, I'm blown. So.
Do you actually fix any of the old hardware? Like, do you get dead stuff and resurrect it?
Yeah, so I did have some learning skills with my soldering iron, so I know some things to fix. This whole hunk of junk I need to fix now. It's I think the capacitors in it are just bad because sometimes it turns on and just after a while it just turns off. So something's happening in it. So I need to consult somebody who's more skilled because dealing with CRT screens can be very deadly. Even if they were turned off for years, they still can hold a massive charge in the tube. So I need to be very careful on that. Otherwise, you'll have one less DA. But yeah.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that. I don't want to hire a replacement.
I have a question here from Mixer. Mixer was on a stream yesterday. Yesterday, yes. Kobus and I did a stream yesterday. So Mixer was there. You said something interesting related to the AWS pipelines. Something which was like when you make a pull request and checking process passage, you can say which commit is the problematic one. Aha. So Mixer, one of the things that we have in AWS or in Amazon. So we have a system that's called Apollo and Brazil and pipelines. Basically, the service internally that serves our software. It's public knowledge, so I'm not saying anything under NDA. And there is a process internally that can block an execution of a pipeline if there is a bad commit. So if somebody makes a bad commit and that commit is picked up by some other developer as well, and they try to push it through the pipeline will not execute due to the bad commit. So it follows the commit ID. Now, how to implement this in AWS, I don't know. But you might be able to have one stage in the code deploy pipeline that would check if the commit ID belongs to a specific subset of IDs that are broken. There's no built-in feature on that in code deploy. But let me actually point you to Cloud Builder library. So it's the AWS Builders library, not Cloud Builders, Amazon Builders library. So this is the place where you can read all about amazing technical documents. It's just, it's an amazing read. So if you go there and check out that link, there's actually a document called Going Faster with Continuous Delivery. It was written by Mark Mansour. And I think this is where he explains that exists. There's 3 documents in total on continuous delivery or safe deploys or testing in the Amazon Builders library. One of them is explaining how that works. I don't think it gets to the details it's probably built in, something we have, but that's one of the ways you can potentially prevent bad software entering your pipeline. I can talk about it all day. I've been spending the weekend reading about testing software and pipelines. Hey, this is the week for you if you want to hear about pipelines and testing code and all this stuff. So yeah.
I went to an office once in Sydney. There was an office where they actually had a Nerf gun mounted on the ceiling, one of those turret ones. And so if someone's commit broke the build, it would actually and then fire a Nerf dart at them.
I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the things I say when you have a proper tool chain in place, breaking pipelines or breaking builds should be very difficult, right? I've committed my code. I personally committed code to an AWS service, and it took me 2 days to do it. So they basically asked me, "Hey, you remember that solution you gave to a customer once in support? Could you code it into this service?" I'm like, "What's the service written in? Java?" I'm like, "I don't know Java. Can you figure it out?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they gave me access to it, and I figured it out, and it wouldn't let broken code go to production. So no matter what I did, I couldn't break the service. So there you go. So
well, Darko, you could have asked one of our colleagues about questions in Java, who is James Gosling, who actually works for Amazon.
I know
the guy who invented Java, basically.
I
was stalking people on like our internal whatever, and no, I'm just kidding. We got him to speak at a conference here, but yes, James Gosling, the person who invented Java, like the guy, actually works for Amazon. So you should, hey, do you know how I can, I'm getting this.
Yeah, hey, I'm sorry, I'm getting this thing in Java. I heard you know something about it. I bet he gets that a lot. I bet people in AWS reach out to him and like, hey James, listen, what is this exception? I'm not sure.
I should have messaged Veronica and been like, I'm stuck at this part of the Hobbit game. Can you help me with that?
She would probably explain the assembly code behind that. Like, why was it broken? There's actually a bunch of people now on the internet who on the YouTubes who used to be developers for those old retro games, and they go on YouTube and like explain their thought patterns behind how they made those games, because in the 80s it took one person to make a game, so you can get one person to completely explain what they did then. So it's pretty nice to see all of that.
Man, but huge respect for people who did coding like back in the day. I mean, no disrespect to people who do coding now, including us, but it was just so much more difficult back then, I feel, the assembly code and stuff like that. Yeah.
It was so difficult.
So
Go ahead.
You're a committer to a service, Darko. Like, do you have
yeah.
is that going to be on your LinkedIn forever? I can't
No.
imagine there's that many people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I've not. The only people who know is like the folks I tell on stream, and I mention it a lot just from the perspective of, hey, it's so easy to do, because somebody actually asked me yesterday. It's like, no, not yesterday. Yesterday I had a phone call with somebody who wants to be a prospective developer at AWS. One of the questions I got from him was, but why would a company hire somebody who's great in language X, but they use language Y? It will take at least 6 months for him to learn. I'm like, buddy, in 6 months you won't do anything at AWS. Like, it takes a long time for you to bring up to speed, and that's okay. But also, it's perfectly safe for you to commit code even if you have no experience in that particular language. Ergo me, I'm not a developer. I've just made things. So yeah, it's a nice way to show a very rigid system in place, or not rigid, resilient system in place. Yeah.
Absolutely. We have a question from C Claus. I'm just going to put that up. C Claus, yeah. So in a multi-environment, dev test prod over multiple accounts, could you share some advice/tips about best practices when it comes to logging from a dev perspective? I guess centralizing the logs in some way is recommended. Chris, Darko?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. And in fact, shipping them off to another account that's protected, I think from a security standpoint, is very important.
Yeah, so having a centralized logging solution solves a lot of problems. Ideally has to be a separate account, because logs are not. Ask yourself, what are you using the logs for? Logs are being used for troubleshooting or investigative purposes. So if something really bad happens, like an account hijack, you want those logs to be available somewhere away from that account, so that it can be accessed by people who will be doing the forensics, for lack of a better word. Additionally, one of the things when it comes to logging, and this is something that's not so new, but is really visible in 2020 in the world of serverless, reduce your logging as much as possible, because logging can be more expensive than running your application, especially if you have a swarm of Lambda functions constantly writing logs to CloudWatch logs. I've seen cases where people's application would cost them the actual compute and data storage costs them $80 a month, while logging costs $200 a month. So reducing the verbosity of logging is very important if you want to keep the costs down, and introducing the features to enable verbosity of logging when that happens. So you have a security incident. Something has detected an anomaly. What happens? Feature flag all the things, verbose logging all the way. You get information when you need it, because 99% of the time, your logs mean nothing. So verbose logging only when you need it, just to save on cost and optimization.
Yeah, Siklas, hope that answered your question.
Yes.
So, take that away. Yeah, as Alex Masha says, AWS famous stuff. Yes, it is pretty cool to see a lot of famous people in Amazon. Like, for instance, there's this band called the Presidents of the United States. It's fairly famous in the 90s. And the frontman of that band works for Amazon. Like, he heads...
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Really?
at least he used to. I know he used to be part of the Alexa team in some music or Amazon Prime Music, something like that. For instance, the guy who was Obama's PR manager, Jay Carney, heads PR for Amazon as well. So they're up, pre-Amazon celebs have sort of joined Amazon. Pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I don't know. Like, for me, the James was the biggest one I've heard of, but it's weird working with those people. It's you can Slack him, and that's it. Like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
I just want to say hi, but that's cool. Yeah.
I've actually emailed James. I mean, I don't know if that's a claim to fame, because we invited him for an event here in the Netherlands. There was a Java specific event, a huge event here, like one of the biggest in Europe, and he gave the keynote. So Tim, who's from the marketing team, and myself, hey James, are you free at this time? So that's my claim to fame. 1 degree of separation, one email. Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the cool things there, and I tell people who want to work here that yes, there are some people who are incredibly notable in their field. They're also really nice And if you ask them a question, every single time they will help you. And that's the bit that was more surprising to me is that, yeah, people will go out of their way, even in another time zone, to help you out.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's all a very collegial situation here. We all are colleagues at the end of the day, and I have not had a bad experience as of yet with anybody. And I believe even if I would send an email to Werner, he would answer me, or something like that. So I don't think nobody here.
With that Spider-Man meme of like two Spider-Men pointing at each other. Yeah.
Oh, you should definitely get him on your show with Kobus. That would be hilarious.
Exactly. So it would be three bald, bearded folk talking tech. Oh my God, Werner, if you're listening to, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good elevator pitch. Yeah.
There we go. Are you bald? Do you have a beard? Do you like to talk about tech? Join us every Monday and Friday.
Ooh, that's a good question from Alex Smasher there. How long does it take someone with support engineering background experience to get up to speed in AWS? Just a rough estimate. I mean, you've actually, I don't know if that describes your journey, Darko.
2 years. 2 years. So
Yeah.
I've joined AWS in 2016. Yeah. And I've joined as a premium support engineer at AWS. Now I had experience with non-AWS things. I have never used AWS before joining AWS. Like I've never logged into the console. Like I've heard about EC2 and S3 and that's about it. And then basically AWS, especially AWS support, provides you with so much training, so much opportunities to learn. Oh my God. Like we had all these things kind of available to you to just sit down and learn AWS, and you get to learn from being thrown to the fire. Now, Alex, this is really what you're trying to do. Are you trying to become something? Are you trying to join the support engineering team in AWS, or a support engineer team in AWS, or something else? But becoming a support engineer at AWS is very much akin to being thrown to the fire, and just like you have the opportunity to learn, and you must learn. And on top of that, you have to solve people's problems like on a phone call, and you have no idea what's happening. So the density of experience is very good. So I think it took me like 2 years to become very good at AWS. So I can become a solution architect. So I became a solution architect after that. And solution architecture just spreads your knowledge quite often, quite broad. So yeah.
Yes, I used to manage a solutions architect team in Sydney, and I hired a number of folks from the support team. And yeah, 2 years I think was about the rule of thumb there. I know in the support org you can sort of specialize in an area. Were you a specialist, Darko? Did you develop a sort of area of depth?
So we had this thing we call like support pods, which are group of people who just don't specialize, but yeah, are focused on supporting specific services like Linux, Windows. We had folks who do databases, the big data. I was in the deployment pod, and deployment was a weird name because we worked on all the DevOps services, as you would call them, but all the CloudFormations, all the code deploys, all those things. This is where I was specializing in, where I was supporting customers with those problems. We do have specialist things. We call them SMEs, or subject matter experts. I was one of the lucky ones to have 3 SMEs. So I had a subject matter expert in OpsWorks for Chef, OpsWorks for Puppet, and CodeDeploy. So yeah, it's a pretty big thing to have, and I'm really proud. I have 3 medals. Like you get a medal when you become a SME, so I have 3 medals somewhere.
Nice, amazing.
Yeah, I think it's great. It opens so much doors, and it's just a valuable experience.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great pathway I saw for solutions architects, for technical account manager roles. People who came out of there, as you say, and we actually have a thing you can do internally as well, where you can go and shadow a customer support engineer for a morning, and I did that. And just, you're right, the even within a pod, even if you've got a focus, you're still going to be dealing with quite a variety of issues on any given day. And I can easily see how you'd become of level 400 depth across a number of services very, very, very quickly.
Yeah, like Julian says in the chat, every day is a learning opportunity. Yeah, for sure. I mean, just as an example, for an upcoming talk, I'm fairly familiar with serverless, but as part of the talk, I was talking a little bit about, path-based routing using ALB. Had no idea. So I reached out to a couple of my colleagues. They were super helpful, and hacked something up, and now I know that. So I think it's great. And thanks, folks, for all the nice comments in chat as well.
Yeah.
Alex Masha, etc. Yeah.
hope you all enjoying the streams and the event, the community day. I know some people joining the stream are probably not coming from the community event, but we have a community day happening currently in the Benelux region. So that link there, you can still register if you want to. There's a few talks coming up by a lot of amazing people. So make
How
sure
did
to
you
check it
get those people? That's what I want to know, because we did the German community day a few weeks back, and we didn't have Werner. We didn't have Corey Quinn. How did you get these people?
So I mean, Werner he is Dutch, so
Well,
there
I
is a bit
suppose
of
that helps.
yeah. And I know, I think a shout out to the folks in the community. They did all the hard work, honestly. You know, they reached out to Corey. They did it a while back. So yeah.
Well, that is an important distinction, I guess. You know, we do the big summits, we do reInvent, and those are events we put on, but community days really run and programmed and everything by the user group organizers, which not knowing when I came into AWS, that was really, really surprising to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Resourceful. No, I think I love community days, because the community days are the most honest things you can hear about AWS out there, because we have no say in it. I cannot tell them, hey, let's not talk about that. The community chooses what they're going to talk about. Most of the speakers are purely from the community, so I think it's a very unbiased opinion of AWS that you hear them. You hear them from AWS enthusiasts, but it's unbiased in a sense that we don't pay them to say that. So so I think it's very cool. Yeah.
Is anyone presenting? Are they all
Sorry, go
presenting
ahead.
in English, by the way, Sohan, or are they all presenting in English? Yeah.
Yes, they are presenting in English. So I mean, I was part of the call. I mean, where they said, you know, if there is something maybe you're familiar with and you'd rather explain Dutch, it's fine. You know, like go ahead. Most of our viewers are Dutch, but 99% of it is going to be in English or is in English. Yeah. And Muksa, yes, this will be on. There will be a record of community. The talks will be up. So go sign up now. You can watch the talks later on as well.
And so many, like I always when I joined the DA team, and when we started doing all these events, and in my eyes, like so much learning opportunities are happening right now. 10 years ago, like where I used to live, I had once a year to go somewhere, and I had to pay out of my behind to go there and learn something for 3 days, and that's it. Like now, every day you can sit down and spend an hour or 2 hours watching and learning content online. That's just amazing. I'm envious. I wish I was younger. I wish this was happening in my days when I could learn more. But yeah.
And I keep telling this to people, and people still laugh at me, but which is weird. But I think Twitch is super underrated when it comes to learning, and not just tech stuff. I mean, I've seen people do live DJ sets and gardening and cooking, and they teach a lot of what they're doing as well. And it's live, so it's so authentic. It's not like super produced, like with cuts and music and editing. It's the real thing essentially. So
I've been trying to get knitting on Twitch. I've been trying to get knitting on Twitch to take off, and I need a better camera. Yeah, I tried it once. I actually did try it once, and I need a really good camera to see what I'm doing.
So you know what you really need, Chris? It's a white background, like
white
just that'll solve everything.
No shadows.
No shadows. Yeah.
But knitting is with the long needles, right?
Yeah.
And the crochet is with the one
with the hook. There was a documentary on one of the streaming. It was part of that slow TV they have in the Nordics, and it was where they actually shore a sheep, cut the hair off the sheep, spun the wool, and knitted a jumper in real time. Wow. And so you could just watch that. So I could do that. We could do that.
Yeah. When I was younger,
Darko.
Exactly. I would love. When I was young, my grandma learned me how to crochet, so I could like crochet a piece of square. That's as much as I went. But I'm happy to get my pair of knitting needles, and I would love to knit on stream with Chris or a bunch of us trying to learn to knit and talk tech. Maybe that would be a good experience.
I see the jumper.
Yeah, there's a AWS jumper.
I haven't done a jumper yet. I did sew a dress with AWS logos all over it for Community Day in Australia last year. I did. So I wore that on stage.
Wow.
So that is currently on the boat from Australia. So that might make an appearance at some point. But it was just funny. I was working on a project on the weekend, and I thought, if I described this on Twitter as doing pixel art from algorithms, all the geeks would be excited. I was knitting a Fair Isle jumper, but it's pixel art from algorithms, man.
but that's like for me doing like even imagining doing like an image on a sweater. Like, how do you wrap your head around it when which color needs to come? Like for me, that's like it's not very visual. It's very difficult for me to, just visualize how that would work. Like my mom used to make me sweaters, and she used to knit a lot, and she would have these like kind of instructions or some very complex pieces of paper with red and black, red and blue. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, it's it's something that I can't wrap my head around it. You did?
Like a full 45-minute tech talk on knitting patterns as a type of computer language, because the problem is it's like assembly. Every different version, I can't just give you a project and have you understand it. There was a standard proposed called KnitML, which was a proposed standard for intermediate pattern transformation that computers could understand. And the old SourceForge project is dead. So I've actually got a few people we're looking at. I need a Java person. And thanks to you, I know where I can find one.
There you go. Just reach out to Java.
Yes, getting to help me revive this old knitting and programming project.
Wow.
Very cool. So, Taco, I don't know if you know this, but I wanted to share this with our viewers as well. But this is super cool that one of those "the world is so small" moments, right? So in 2018, I was working in the Alexa team in India, in Bangalore. So I was speaking at a conference there, and this guy called Dan Makowski was talking, this super cool designer, and he was doing a talk. So as part of his talk, he gave out like small sheets of paper for people to draw the person next to you. So you have to say hi to the person next to you, and you have to draw that person, right? And I'm going to share my screen, and who I ended up drawing. This was Chris and me who met each other in 2018, actually. And
I didn't even work at AWS. That was before I worked at AWS.
And this is apparently my drawing of her and her drawing of me. So, she didn't even work in AWS back then. And she tweeted it out in 2018. And now we're on the same team doing a stream. So I really think this is like, it's one of those moments.
I did go to your talk as well. I went to your talk at that session. Yours was great.
I think you did, yeah. So, small world indeed, huh?
Amazing.
Mine, do you know what mine was, Darko? This is a good trivia question for you. My talk was about building software that lasts. And I started with a trivia question that people could tell me what the oldest piece of software still running is. You want to have a guess? It's not in your room. It's not behind you, if that's a hint.
Something COBOL?
Basically, it's the software aboard Voyager, the space probes.
Oh, right.
Wow.
There are some very old punch card systems that a few like small warehouses claim to be running for like the last 60 years. But I as near as I could tell, the Voyager spacecraft is some of the oldest.
Yeah, wow. Well, you can imagine, like, it's a way, like, there's no patching the Voyager spacecraft anymore.
They do.
It's out of patch range.
Patch it. They do patch it. They have patched it many times, which is amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do we still have the communication with Voyager, or is it lost? One of them left the solar system. Yeah. There was Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. I think one of them just completely left. It's out of range. But you're right. One of them is still in communication. The one that just flew by Pluto. Yeah. Is that Voyager? Or
is that the one with the golden disk? The one with the golden disk?
I'm not sure. One of them has the golden disk. The other one has like a record or something. Yeah, it's.
Oh yeah. Speaking of people who can sing, look who's here.
Oh!
La la la.
Hello, my dear bald bearded brother.
Howdy, folks.
Howdy.
You're having a party without me, I see.
Yeah, we were discussing the oldest piece of software we know. Or actually, Chris asked us, what is the oldest piece of software still running?
My money is on... I know, like, surprisingly, Fortran, especially for the fast Fourier transforms, when you actually use NumPy and SciPy, it actually uses Fortran to do those because they haven't, from my understanding at least, been able to make them any faster in other languages. So I was actually giggling the one time when I saw a Python package installing and needed a Fortran scrolls past and actually compile. Um,
But this
Let's
this
think
is
this
actually
is-
something still running, like it's the thing on top of Voyager 1.
yeah, I don't want
the
to say,
space
yeah,
probe.
that. When was that launched? Actually, I'm assuming you guys would have
77.
discussed it.
77, I
97.
think. I'm looking it up now. I think it was
Oh.
77.
Let's see.
Yeah.
How do they do patches for it now, though? I'm very curious.
So they have SSM Agent installed on it, and SSM Agent uses the simple service patch manager, pulls the latest CVEs.
Wow.
No.
You know, there's just a slight latency of 20 days between.
Yeah.
I think it's actually 20 minutes, or no, it's 20 minutes to Mars when it comes to light. The propagation of electrons.
Yeah.
I think
No, in fact, last year, sorry to interrupt you, Darko, but at REMARS, at Amazon REMARS, there was a talk by a lady who was part of the Mars rover team. And at the start of the talk, she actually like hit a button on a screen, and like about 20-30 minutes, the rover actually turned, which was what she was operating, which is just like
wow.
mind-blowing.
Yeah, 20 minutes to Mars, and like to Pluto, it's a couple of days, I think. A couple of hours at least. So
Damn the laws of physics.
yeah.
Although actually, I read some cool sci-fi a while back. The Golden Occupine, where human brains basically, you don't have currency, you've got computing power, and the richer you are, the more compute power you have. And one of them is like if you're doing this long distance communication, it can actually slow down your brain or do other things, so it seems like a real time communication instead of like this long delay. I don't know what your brain was doing in the other period when it was sleeping or something, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
interesting.
Mining
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Mining Bitcoin.
That's what I was
exactly.
about to say.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting though? So even like right, I think maybe a couple of years ago, maybe it was last year at the ISS, they found that they didn't have like a spanner for a particular thing that went wrong. So they just like sent like a 3D printer feasible file, and they just 3D printed the new spanner on the ISS and fixed it. Actually,
I'm still trying to find a reason for me to buy a 3D printer. Like I want a 3D printer, but like I have no.
Darko, look around your room. You have a lot of useless junk anyway. So what would a
Where are
3D
you
printer
gonna
wouldn't
put it?
hurt?
Where are you going to put it?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I need.
No. There's a help for that. I just want to point out, Darko, you just said you've got a lot of useless junk at home.
He's not wrong.
Them is fighting with.
Well, you know, everybody needs an old Commodore monitor, and everybody needs a bunch of tapes of video games. Yeah. So, but yeah, making
Cassette
replacement
tapes.
parts.
Yeah.
It's cassette tapes. Yeah. One of the things that like actually does like come into mind, like, oh, I can make replacement parts. You know, when a piece of plastic breaks, I can kind of fix it. But still, I know it would just be used here to collect dust, and you know, from time to time, I would print.
No.
No.
3D printer save icon.
There you go. We need a darker room tour. Oh my god. Yeah.
We're breaking Chris.
You could 3D print an asterisk. You wouldn't have to have the card. You could have like.
There
a
you go.
real-
See.
Ooh.
I will have
saw
a
when,
desk full of things.
When everyone started wearing masks, people were 3D printing a thing that you could hook the ends together. That was a genuinely useful thing. Yeah.
They also did the things on the foreheads where they would
Yeah.
make the plastic things, and you can just put any piece of plastic sheet in front of you,
shield.
and just it
Yeah.
would work. Yeah. So it was just great. But yeah. Oh my god. So I think we have a bunch of people joining here.
Yeah, I think our time is up, my friend.
Our time is up. Sohan, Kobus.
Wow,
it-
Darko, I'm hurt. You streamed without me.
Kobus,
It's all right, I'll remember.
It's your time. It's your time to take the lead as the bald, bearded person in the room. So
No, Darko. It's my time to shine because I just filled my forehead and then I always shine.
it's always our time to shine, Kobus. With this head, we shine every stream.
Kobus will be streaming with us, but he'll be thinking of you, Darko. So it's fine.
Well, thank you all, and enjoy. Thank you everybody for the comments and questions. And shameless self-plug this Friday. Join Kobus and me at 11 a.m. Central European time for more bald, bearded goodness, and yeah, more tech talk.
And enjoy the rest of Community Day. Some great sessions coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Thanks, Darko. Thanks,
See ya.
Chris. Bye.
Cheers, Chris.
Yeah.
Cheers, Darko.
We have a couple of new people joining in. Hey, Fabian. Hey, Martijn.
Hi.
And
Howdy.
say hello to Kobus. Kobus, say hello to Martijn and Fabian. They're from the community, so I pulled them in to say hello.
No,
Folks, yeah, we have Community Day live right now. If you have any questions, if you want to watch Community Day, go to awscommunityday.nl, register, sign up. A lot of great talks happening. But if you have any questions, hit us up. Fabian, Martijn, why don't you all introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, hi, I'm Fabian, one of the co-founders and the current CTO of company Full Stack. We work mostly in the Netherlands, and we do a lot of cloud native migrations, help companies get to the next level of infrastructure and application management, basically.
Awesome. Martijn.
Cool. I'm Martijn van Dongen. I'm an AWS community hero, and last year started organizing the AWS Community Day, which we're running right now. And I'm joined by a couple of other colleagues in the community. They are currently in the actual sessions, so they're really busy running the whole event, and that makes me available to join this session over here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining in. Kobus, what have you been working on? What fun things have you been hacking up? Yeah.
I actually had to re-record that Let's Build session this morning. It was quite amusing hearing my audio break up the whole time. So basically scaling Elastic Beanstalk up and down and playing with that quite a bit. What else have I been doing this week? A lot of reInvent stuff, which I cannot mention. All I can say is I'm very, very excited for what's coming because we're going to be having some live streams on some of as with all our software, it's scheduled to launch. It might not launch in time, but if it does, there will be a lot of fun toys next year or end of this year, depending on which service you're looking at. So spending quite a bit of time at the moment on that. And now I have to rewind. Today's Tuesday only. So I haven't broken that many things this week yet.
All right. So on that note, Fabian, did you have a talk? Did you have a talk at Community Day? If so, what was the talk about? No. Okay. No. Yeah, I think got it. Yeah. Mukse asks if I can show the names of the speakers. Yes, I'll do that. Sorry, I might have to remove the comment for that. Does it show it? There we go.
Oh, I should probably just clarify because I know my name normally confuses people.
Oh no, you're not going to.
There you go.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So, Martijn, you had a chat with Dr. Werner Vogels. How did that go?
It was improvising. Is my sound better right now?
Yes, it does. It does. Oh, it was echoing slightly. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it was improvising, but that's when things go live. Then you have to improvise. So, and I was also kind of nervous, of course, speaking to the big man himself, the CTO of Amazon. So it was actually on my bucket list to at least have one moment in my life that I'm on stage with Werner. So that's now checked. Yeah.
Yeah, virtual stage, but yes, definitely counts. 100%. Yeah. Any cool things that he said on the keynote, Martijn? I was busy setting up the stream, so I missed the second half at least.
Yeah, it was kind of a personal session. So normally we know Werner tells a lot about AWS, about the company, about the technology, etc. And he really answered questions like how it's for him to be a CTO of such a big company, how they actually run within Amazon with AWS technology, of course, but also that he's currently living in Amsterdam and maybe need to extend it for a couple of months. So I really enjoyed having this conversation with him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Seth Carlo, yes, you can ask questions at that. That's the whole point. So we're doing office hours. For those of you all just joining in, feel free to ask us any questions in the chat about AWS tech, about services, whatever. We have like 3 experts here. I'm just the host. But yeah, Fabian, Martijn, and Kobus will help us out. And yeah, hello to everyone joining in. Fabian, can you tell us a bit about what you do and what AWS services you work on? Yeah.
Yeah, so as CTO for a consultancy company, I am still in the field, doing awesome jobs for awesome customers. And right now I'm helping one of the big banks in the Netherlands build their next level EKS platform. We're working with a small team and it's actually really, really cool. So the idea is that their development teams can get a cluster on demand specifically for them with a whole bunch of stuff installed that makes it safe to use for banking environments.
Very cool. We have a question from Seth. Seth says, are there any AWS upcoming services that you're particularly excited about? Cobus, since I don't know how much you can actually say out on stream, but but any other new launches perhaps, or new features that just launched that you want to talk about perhaps?
Yeah, no, the upcoming release.
Oh, I think we lost you.
I'm kidding. I muted myself.
Well done. Very meta.
No, the release, like, so honestly, it's like, obviously can't even hint at what it is that's coming, but there's some very, very cool things coming that I think will make lives for our customers a lot better. So those things are exciting. Other than that, I mean, the fact that SageMaker launched in the Cape Town region last week or this week makes me happy because I'm based in Cape Town. So we've been slowly but surely getting more and more services launching over here. And that specifically, I'm still waiting, I believe, for Code Build at this point. That's the other service that I basically use on a daily basis, even if it's not for builds, because you fire up a container and it does stuff. It doesn't have to be building software, actually, which is quite useful.
Cool. And Martijn, any recently launched features or AWS services that you're particularly excited about?
Sorry, I was really focused on the event for today, so I think I muted all the news feeds, and I really have to catch up tonight.
Right. Actually, yeah. no, that's fine. I mean, Martijn did all of the heavy lifting. He's the AWS hero and the community lead here. There is one service that just launched that is in private beta that I'm quite excited about, which is Wavelength. So Wavelength essentially, it is infrastructure specifically designed for cellular service providers who are running 5G. It's something that's very future looking. 5G is not going to happen like tomorrow, but I think it's quite exciting. It brings compute and storage and some other AWS services very close to the edge. In fact, if, for instance, you're running, say, a Vodafone or a Verizon, they have a data center, you can actually run storage and compute in that data center. So technically, you're not even going on the internet to go from data center to AWS region. You're straight up running it from the edge itself. So quite interesting what the possibilities are maybe 2-3 years down the line. Fabian, question for you, if you've worked with it maybe, what would be the best way to deal with Aurora serverless's cold start?
So my area of expertise is mostly in containers and Kubernetes. So I'm going to have to pass that to someone else.
No problem. Cobus, Martijn, anyone face this issue?
Cool. I will deal with that. So just to define what the cold start here is, that with Aurora serverless, you can actually scale down to 0 compute units because with Aurora, the storage and the actual compute is split. So the storage layer is completely separate from the compute unit, so you can increase and decrease those. And when it goes down to 0, when a query comes in, there's a spin up time, I think between 30 and 60 seconds. So the question is, remember, when you're setting your app to scale down to 0, that's the trade-off, is like you don't pay for the compute while it's at 0, but there is a cold start. Now, it depends on the situation. If you know, for example, that people in the morning at 8 a.m. or 7:30 start using your app, you can very easily just schedule a Lambda function with a CloudWatch event to actually trigger a call to that database to then warm it up before you see your traffic coming in. Other than that, if it really is a problem where you can't afford it to be down, just change your scaling units to not be zeros, so it only scales down to a single compute unit.
Martijn, have you used Aurora as well?
Well, actually, I didn't use Aurora serverless in a production environment, but of course, I have experience with RDS, Aurora, and the whole relational database stack. Yeah, so, and of course, I agree. It was absolutely correct. You don't have to schedule until 0 unless it's, for example, your test environment, your dev environment. That's basically you can set to 0. But like a production environment where continuously people are, logging into your website, you should definitely not provision it to 0 because you will lose connectivity. Yeah.
Got it. Hopefully my audio is a little clearer now, Cobus. StreamYard always does something to my audio. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, it's a bit better now, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fabian, question for you then. an EKS
Yeah.
specialist. So any reasons these days to manually build and deploy Kubernetes on EC2 versus EKS?
I think you got to wonder, for the few bucks that it costs to host your master nodes via AKS, so that you don't need to manage them yourselves, can you really, for the same amount of money, host them yourself? Because if you want to do it properly, you have to set up your etcd properly, you have to set up your masters properly, and if you want to really do it good, that's already 6 machines right there. That's going to cost you more than just taking it as a service. Now, if you have really specific needs for benchmarks or sys benchmarks, or you want to specifically run stuff on master for whatever reason, then you could consider it, but I wouldn't.
I mean, the only other reason I've seen people do this is if there's an absolute critical feature that they cannot live out without that's in one of the recent releases. And once again, given that that's a 3 to maybe 6 month, well, I don't actually know what the lag currently is with the how long it takes to the major version to be adopted. That's the only other reason I've kind of seen, but I would always caution people saying, listen, if it's such a new feature in any case, is it something that you want to be running in production right now? So
I'm more happy with stable functions that have been there for a while than latest and greatest.
I also have a question for you. I tried EKS when it was in a private beta stadium, and it really took a couple of hours to get it up and running. Is it still a heavy lifting, or is it easier to launch your EKS cluster nowadays?
Takes about 30 minutes.
Really?
Well, we spin up and spin down clusters quite often. We also spin down our testing clusters so that we can test the stuff that we're currently building and test that it runs properly on a newly created cluster. But it's usually just waiting for machines to start up that takes the longest.
Yeah, and also with EKS CTL, which is a open source tool by Weaveworks, if I remember correctly, you can basically launch it, I think, with a single line with, I think, 3 or 4 parameters only. Yeah,
or you can use a config file. But to be honest, I prefer using stuff like Terraform, or if you want to specifically be on AWS, use for CloudFormation. For instance, CloudFormation has the option to add node taints. That isn't, I don't think that's available yet on Terraform. But I prefer to build these things with infrastructure as code basics.
I must say that's something that still gets me with Kubernetes, the fact that you use kubectl with YAML files and whatever's in there gets deployed, and then you hope you go clean it up afterwards. That it's deeply disturbing to me that it feels like we've gone back a step.
Yeah, so this is why I'm a big advocate of using stuff like GitOps. I like using Argo CD a lot because you can configure it to automatically clean up after itself. Now, obviously, it can't know about resources that it did not create because that's not its goal. But if you use this as its entry point, then at least you know you're cleaning up after yourself.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's the same as with infrastructure as code. You shouldn't be creating stuff by hand anymore. I mean, there's so many awesome tools that help you with that. I personally am on the Terraform bandwagon, been using it for like 5-6 years.
Yeah. Well, using Terraform to roll out stuff inside a Kubernetes cluster, I think that I feel Terraform is more for static stuff and not so much for stuff that's inside a cluster that's moving a lot. So I like to keep that separate.
Yeah, no, there's that edge. I found normally, especially with like autoscaling groups, it's like the autoscaling group, yes. The launch template, that's kind of where it starts breaking down because you might want to refresh the AMI. You can obviously ignore the life cycle with it and just always do a lookup, but that kind of feels like a little bit dirty.
I like to be at the last patch for security reasons, but I don't mess around with the launch template too much because, well, you can make it a lot more difficult than it has to be, or you can use the default Amazon Linux image, which already works just fine. And there's enough complexity when starting to use Kubernetes that if you come down to the point of having to work with your launch templates, there's enough complexity already.
Yeah, it's I saw a poster today that says the H in Kubernetes stands for happiness.
Speaking of which, Seth has another question, which is, are there any Kube API server options not available for EKS that are available for a self-built cluster? Again, I'm not I
Yeah,
don't
there's
know.
probably
Yeah.
going to be, but I haven't run into anything that I'm missing, to be honest. And once again, if you're running into these edge cases that you need these specific reasons, well, maybe that's a reason to specifically run it with, for instance, something like COPS. But do you really, really need that specific feature?
Seth, question for you, but also Seth has another question, which is there any preference between Helm or Kustomize as a configuration management system for Kubernetes?
Oh, yeah, good question. I like to use both. I'm not always a fan of all the Helm charts because some Helm charts do specific things that make it more difficult to run in something like Argo CD, because Helm hooks have specific use cases that might be used in a different way. Kustomize, on the other hand, is a lot simpler to build your own stuff in, but there's not much out there that you can just get and start using. So if you want to use off-the-shelf products, open source products, then usually there's a Helm chart, but then a customized chart, customized directory or whatever that's called. But I do like to use Kustomize to roll out everything that I do in Argo CD, for instance. But if you want to start using variables and you do need to do string interpolation, then there's no other option really than using Helm. I use both, and it depends on the use case.
Mm-hmm. We also have a question for you. If I have a EKS cluster running in a major Kubernetes version and I need to upgrade to a new version, is that an easy upgrade, or do I need to prepare that, or how that
kind of depends? So if there's obviously look for the release notes, the latest version, because sometimes new stuff gets added. But for the rest, it's just first you hit update and it starts updating your master plane, your control plane. You can either do that via your automation or via click of the button. And then afterwards, you got to make sure that your nodes are actually get upgraded as well.
Sounds easy.
It is.
Kobus, probably a question up your alley, which is, I would like to use a separate set of nodes to add to my Kubernetes cluster for running specific workloads. Probably need to use tolerations. Can I automate that with EKS?
So yeah, like I mentioned, I'm sorry, you go.
Oh, sorry, no, you go. You're definitely the expert. I was just going to say you can have different worker pools for this and use that to select where to deploy bits. That's as far as my suggestion would go.
Yeah, and it also depends on if you want to do this from starting up your nodes immediately, because then you're, so as I said earlier, then you're probably locked into CloudFormation for now, because the function to add taints to these nodes is something that's in there, but I haven't seen it yet in Terraform. And otherwise you got to do it afterwards manually, but that's the wrong way to do it.
Yeah, Atlanta says, I don't understand nothing. Well, I think I'm in the same boat, Atlanta. I'm not at all an expert in the whole Kubernetes space. So follow Kobus's streams, perhaps. He does a lot of things in that region that we don't understand. So yeah, Kobus, you're streaming on Mondays and Fridays on Twitch, if I'm not mistaken?
Actually, it's always Mondays and Fridays at 11 Central European time, and then Thursdays at... Now I have to convert it quickly. I think it's also 11 Central European time now with the change. And then some Wednesdays as part of our EMEA Ask Me Anything sessions as well. So most days of the week at the moment.
Yeah. Nice. The time zone thing is particularly confusing for this week because I think the European countries are following time zone. America hasn't yet. And countries like South Africa anyway don't have time zone differences. So it's like, what is happening?
And Australia changed over on the 6th of October. So yeah, and I've got meetings across all of these time zones at the moment. It's been fun scheduling things.
Yeah. So earlier in the stream, we were talking a bit about retro computing and gaming and things like that. So changing from containers and Kubernetes, were you guys into that scene back in the day? What was like Commodore 64, Nintendo type thing? Was it big here as well?
I think I'm
it actually was.
Yeah.
I'm 35 right now, so the first experience with a computer was indeed a Commodore 64, which I guess I was 12 years old. But my own computer as a child was already a Windows PC, so that's what I grew up with. And when I went to college, I think it was already connected to the internet, etc. So I was there from the start, right? From the internet start.
Yeah. Cobus, you've probably seen a little more than.
Oh, are you now what's it called? Age
Yeah.
shaming me.
Age shaming you? Yes, totally.
I've only got a few days left, and then I can chase you off the lawn. Okay, give me. Given that I cleaned up my office, I can give you some hints. Artifacts that I found recently. This is probably the oldest piece of software I have here now. It zooms in.
Oh.
If you look closely, it's for Windows 3.x, any Windows 3.1 or 3.11, depending. I found a Genius Mouse install disk, which everybody should have. Also, Windows 95 CD-ROM boot disk. But no, it started long before that. I mean, my first computer that I had interaction with was an old Sperry. I can't remember the it's a green and black screen, and played Sopwith on it way back in the day. And that was not the fancy Sopwith with 3 colors. This was the 1 color Sopwith. And then from there, I think the next one was DOS 5, I think I worked on. And then from DOS 5 jumped to 6 along with Windows 3. And then, so those. Interesting game-wise, no Commodore, no Nintendo, no TV games and something. For some reason, my parents thought that games on the TV was bad for you. Along with, and this is very weird, Ninja Turtles was not allowed in our house. Other cartoons were, but Ninja Turtles were bad for you. Don't ask me why. So no TV games and no Ninja Turtles, but computer games, that was fine.
What about you, Fabian? Did you play like Mario and game that? Yeah.
Yeah, so the first games I played on computers, I didn't actually know what the computer was. I just had someone who started them up for me, and I just got to play. The first stuff I really played on that I knew to recognize was Nintendo. So the first Nintendo, but then only years after it actually came out, when it was on secondhand fairs or what do you call those markets where you can buy secondhand stuff. Right.
Yeah, I'm surprised with this no Ninja Turtles thing, Cobus. I played that game as a kid. It was weird, but it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not even I'm not talking about the video game. I'm just talking about the cartoons. The cartoons.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know. Parents were very conservative when I grew up, and that was just on the big no-no list.
Okay. I remember my first my first tryst with programming was when we were in 4th grade and we were made to learn Logo. I don't know if you guys have used that, but there's this little turtle on the screen, so you have to get it to move left and make designs, move left, move right, etc. And that was our introduction to programming. It was quite strange. Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
That comment is popping on the screen from Gert. Yeah. So here's a fun one. When I went to study was I started studying in 2000, and at that point, choosing what to study, computer science was an option at university, but it wasn't an option for me because at that point computers were too new, and my grandfather actually sponsored my some of my studies, and his opinion was that this computer thing, we don't know if it's going to take off or not. It's rather focused on a proper career like electronic engineering. That's a good career, so you need to go do that. So I actually didn't do computer science at varsity, which is I'm very sad about, but to do some programming at least. Java 1.3, I think we started with.
Which is also strange because maybe about 5 years ago, I've heard a lot of conversations of people saying, this kid wants to be a YouTuber, or this kid wants to be a gamer, like how silly is he? Go do your computer science like the rest of us, And now they are legit careers because, whatever, it is big thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think anything that you nowadays, if you're really passionate about something, you can make a career out of it because that normally comes through. The people that are really excited about things are the ones that do well. It's like you must get up and be like, ooh, I want to do this and dig into it and play with it and do things with it. And that tends to just come across better. And it entertains people as well as educates them.
Yeah, I think just with the internet and how things have sort of, I think if you create something good or if you're genuinely interested, it will show up somehow, right? You can create like a small network. There is that virality effect, etc. So yeah, in fact, Martin, you have a question which Chris also was asking us, which is how in the world were you able to get Werner and Corey Quinn for the keynote? So even Chris from our team was asking us that question. So maybe you can tell us how you got that done.
Yeah, it started, I think, 6 years ago. So the first time I organized a meetup, my first question was, "Hey, Werner, would you like to join?" And actually, Werner did attend a meetup in Amsterdam. There's even a YouTube video of him being present at the meetup there. So that was actually before we started or reinvented the meetup in Amsterdam. So when I started, my ambition was to get him on stage again, but of course, AWS grew this big, so it wasn't realistic, I think, to get him on stage. But I reached out to the community team within AWS. They have really good contact with all the community heroes and the community leaders across the globe. I said I'm going to organize an AWS Community Day, and I think it's good to have an executive on stage. So maybe Werner is a good person because he's also from Amsterdam and maybe like to join. And that was actually when we still imagined to organize a in-person meetup, so in-person community day. So that was right before the pandemic went global. So I thought, well, let's see how that goes, but also check if there are other speakers, remarkable speakers that we can get on stage, preferably not an Amazonian. So people who is really famous and an expert in the field, and I like to have a fun talk. So that was also what I was looking for. And actually, Corey is also just a very reachable person. You can just reach out on Twitter or Slack. This is what I used, and he basically answers within a second. Yeah, I'm in. Okay. So that was how it went. Yeah.
Any highlights from Corey's keynote, Martin? I know he live tweeted his thing, and Cobus, we should figure out how to do that. He live tweeted his talk while he was doing the talk. Right? Obviously automated with scripts, etc. But I think that's something fun that we should try doing.
Well, actually, the talk of Corey was not live. So everything is live today except the talk from Corey. Okay. That's because he became a father again. So he is now a father of 2. And he planned a paternity leave. So we wanted to respect his paternity leave, and he recorded the session, sent it over to the tech people, and tuned it in. So I was also surprised that he was actually live tweeting and interacting with the people. So thank you, Corey, for that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I have seen him do that before, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can like, if we've got a discussion like this where there are gaps in the conversation where you can quickly jot off a tweet or two, that I can kind of do, but there's no way I can do a presentation and tweet unless it's pre-recorded things, and maybe you've got a machine learning bot that you send the messages or something.
But if you were to build something like that, Cobus, how would you do that? And Fabian, feel free to jump in here as well. Like, suppose you know the content of your talk and you know you're going to present it in a certain way. So how would you build like a live tweet, something?
If I was really good, I would build in time checkpoints inside my talk that I know that exactly at certain points I'm going to hit certain specific, like the topic, but then you have to get your timing correct because then you can pre-schedule all the tweets. That's one way. Another way is if you have some kind of system where you've got a whole bunch of them ready on the side, and all you need to do is that when you get to that point in your talk, you just quickly will click. Because with multiple screens, that's still doable. I think you'll still pick it up when I'm busy talking and something like that happens. But there are ways I think like that you can fake it. But the other way I'd be is I just have someone else that knows when to click what message. Literally say, here's the list. As soon as I get to this slide, you see it, boom, click. Next one, click. So a couple of ways to fake it.
I like to use JavaScript framework for my presentations. I'm not usually a JavaScript huge fan, but I like Reveal.js. So, could probably hack something in there that specific slides, specific tweets get tweeted.
Nice. quick update, folks. Martin has to leave. Martin has to go because he's, well, hosting Community Day. So if you want to check out a cool event that's happening live right now, go check out awscommunityday.nl. The link is here. You can sign up now. Martin, will the talks be available later on as well if someone wants to watch it?
Yeah, so the talks are available on the platform, so you still can register even the upcoming weeks. And we will also cut all the talks into the right moment. So currently it's a complete track for 2.5 hours, but it's easy to find the talks you are interested in. And of course, after a couple of weeks, we will share them on YouTube. But if you want to watch them tomorrow, you can register and watch the sessions. You can even chat with other folks that are still online tomorrow. So the platform remains available. Sponsors might be there as well. So check out what they have. They also share good content on their sponsor pages. And you can still win prizes. So that's also very cool.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Martin, and everybody check out awscommunityday.nl, happening live right now. You can sign up now and watch the talks later. All right, Martin, we will see you later. Thank you so much again. Bye.
Thank you.
Good things.
Okay, so folks, the questions are coming in. Keep those questions coming in. We have Rudik's World. I haven't seen Rudik's World in a long time on one of our streams, so I'm going to put that question up. Here we go. What's the key difference between EFS? Okay. Well, welcome back to Rudik's World. What's the key difference between EFS and EBS? I can't seem to find from where to manage EBS. Kobus. I'm going to delegate.
So EBS delegates. Awesome. So EBS is a volume that you create inside a specific availability zone, and this is then attached onto a EC2 instance, and you can actually attach them now, I believe, up to 16 instances at the same time. So it's a data, think of it like a virtual drive that you then attach to the machine, where EFS is actually a network file system. And the reason, the big difference there is that you mount the EFS file system, whereas you attach the EBS volume. And then you would mount the EBS volume as well. So they're two different types of storage mechanisms. And EFS also specifically is, it's got an endpoint per availability zone when you configure it in terms of which subnets to become available in. So it's literally an IP address that you effectively mount if you want to go into ETC fstab and configure it over there, similar to how you would configure an NFS volume. And then that DNS, so you don't have to hardcode the IP, you use a single DNS and it actually resolves to the local IP inside your availability zone for that. I think someone is on mute.
Oops, yeah. I went on mute. Sorry, folks. Yeah, I was just reading the question. See, it's not a live stream without someone, talking when they're on mute. So, sorry about that. So I was just reading the question saying, yeah, can we use Kubernetes in a serverless world?
Yeah, but it's a different approach to application design. You can even use serverless on Kubernetes, but there's no real serverless standard yet. So each big implementation of serverless is different. And that makes it a little bit more difficult, because when you build something for serverless for Lambda specifically, it's something specifically for Lambda. So you can start using what that brings for you, and then Kubernetes doesn't add much for it. But if there are supporting services that you need to run, or if you're running your application stack in containers, then yeah, Kubernetes is a really good way to run it. So it's two different ways of looking at running applications, and both have pros and cons, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, question from Gerrit, who says, are there any use cases to use EFS as volumes for Kubernetes pods?
You want me to take that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a I believe your application shouldn't be sharing data amongst multiple instances of the same application running, because that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So I like it when an application, each instance of the application has its own data, if it even needs that. For instance, databases need their own data, and then you set up replication between that. But if you still have an application that is bound to use a volume that is mounted on multiple versions of or multiple instances of the same application, then you can use EFS. It's easy to drop in. But you might want to look at your application design in general, because it's not really according to the 12-factor apps anymore.
Yeah, hope that answered your question. Good. Yeah.
The one place I've seen it, and once again, this is not, I wouldn't recommend doing it, but this, let's say you want to, for some reason, run a WordPress site on Kubernetes that has got static or some configuration files, and you're limited that it has to be a file, it can't be some other configuration mechanism. Then you can look at using EFS just to share the config file between all the different ones. But you run into a whole bunch of different problems, like when you make a change to the config, how do you then restart all the apps, etc. So definitely agree with Martin on this. You could argue there are ways to do it, but at the end of the day, you'll always run into issues because shared state in a distributed system is not something you want to really deal with.
Yep. Kobus, I want to ask you a personal-ish sort of question. But I know that Afrikaans is sort of derived from Dutch. Do you actually understand Dutch when it's spoken by a native speaker?
Ja, ek kan so 'n klein bietjie verstaan, maar die Nederlanders lag vir ons as ons praat, want hulle dink dis kombuis Nederlands.
Not bad.
Ja, en ik kan ongeveer de helft verstaan van wat hij zegt, zo ongeveer.
Ja, ek kan ook omtrent sy helfte verstaan. How's your Dutch, Sohan?
Not good. Wait here. No, it's not very good.
The thing that's funny is like the common words that we combine into make like specific words that then for each other we start laughing. Like for example, for us, peanut butter in Afrikaans we refer to as kakiebotter, which is literally cat butter.
Cat butter. It's pindakaas here in Dutch, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, cheese made of peanuts. Whoever came up with that doesn't know cheese.
Yeah, so there are a couple of words like when we look at each other like that's a very, very strange way of using those words together, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, for us, like the other fun one is a steak, is in Afrikaans a beeshaste. So beef, rabbit, piece, if you translate it directly. So once again, don't ask me where that comes from, but yeah, it's like.
Okay. On that note, I'm going to bring someone in which is David. Hey, David.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going?
David.
Yeah.
Dave, you're South African too, aren't you?
Yes, exactly.
He's definitely. How's it gave it away?
Yeah.
I was going to be more like Saul Bona Bafwetu. How's it going?
More open this way.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I'm like Sohan said, I'm actually South African, like Kobus here, and I've also had good luck to work with Fabian. So
yeah,
a bunch of great guys.
Yeah, I was really happy to have David to spar with, because it was a really challenging AWS question that we were able to work out together.
Oh yeah, there's always good stuff. I basically love to just find where cool AWS things are being built and learn as much as I can about them. Gonna have a quick sip of Coke here.
That's not sponsored content, folks. Just FYI. So, David, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone? You just joined the stream. We've been streaming for about an hour and a half so far. Folks who have joined us, we are streaming this in parallel with AWS Community Day Netherlands. It's happening right now. So if you want to check it out, there are a lot of great talks that are happening. You can check out those talks later as well. The link is here at the bottom. So do check it out. We're doing this office hours with Kobus, with David and Fabian right now. So if you have any questions about AWS or tech or pretty much anything else, just hit us up in chat. David, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Cool, yeah. So I came to Netherlands about a year and a half from South Africa, and I've got about 9 AWS certs, looking for all 13, trying to catch them all, pretty much like everybody else. Been taking a little bit of time around the networking and the machine learning stuff, but I've totally prepped for them. I just want to make sure. The networking stuff is really technical. So then I joined Schuberg Phillips, which is an amazing company. You know, you'll sit next to a guy who's like seemingly just some mission critical engineer, and then he goes off and starts his own company like Fabian, right? These genius guys here. So
thanks, man.
No, it's a pleasure. So it's been really fun, and it's been really awesome working at Schuberg, because there's a ton of AWS projects going on. We've got like about 8 or 9 AWS teams running about 40 projects plus minus. So I get to sit in the cloud acceleration team and kind of check out what are all these AWS things that are happening, and kind of make sure that we're being well architected and using all the coolest, greatest stuff. And I get to also learn a lot and kind of give it to all the best practices to the different teams. And it's like a really fun part. I mean, I actually think I have a bit of a unicorn job. I get to do what I love, play with AWS 24/7. It's like, yeah, I win.
Yeah, nice. Mm-hmm. And David, one last question. Kobus and I, we do a lot of these streams, and we often get asked questions like, hey, I'm studying for this exam, where do I get started? How do I get better? And things like that. You've done what, 8 certifications? 9, wow, okay. So you'll have some tips for our viewers, I'm sure, on how to get started, or, what to study from, etc.
It's actually so interesting, because there's like millions of Medium articles, and articles always get posted all the time about like, hey, how do you pass this associate or this thing? I actually found the harder question is, how do you keep your skills up to date? Like, that is actually the true, I think, pot of gold that you should be looking for, is like, how can I keep making sure that like how I'm doing stuff now is the right way? In a few years, how you set up an application load balancer has changed. It used to be like public subnets, application load balancers. Now you can put them in private subnets with global accelerator and do all of this other kind of crazy stuff, right? And even like Kubernetes and all of these things, they've changed so much. It's like when I first did my solution architect professional like 3 years ago, it was, when I've redone it now, recertified, it's a completely different test. I was like, wow, like the things that are in it are completely different. So for me, it is a bit about passion, like getting started. Computer stuff is never easy. So find something you really love and just like really dive into it and eat away. And you'll learn a lot of the stuff that's around that area. You'll get a lot of that context. You'll develop a lot of the passion. You'll either go, actually, I hate this, I don't want to do it. And that's also valuable. So you'll be like, oh my God, I hate AWS. I don't want to touch it. It's the worst thing. And then you'll be like, okay, cool. That's one path closed. Or it'll just like ignite something like it ignited in me and help this South African boy get all the way to Netherlands and hopefully build AWS stuff all the way around the world. So I would say start small. I started with the associates. I took it easy. I just did all 3 associates. Then I did the professionals, and then I did the specialities, because I wanted to really have a good day.
Got it. Nice. Yeah, long way for me to go to get 9. I have like 1, I think. Yeah, never mind.
The hardest is keeping up to date and like staying.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some monsters. I'm friends with them on like LinkedIn too, right? These guys who are like these 13 cert monsters, and you're like, how do they do this? And you look at their thing, and they've gotten like 5 or 6 in like the period of like 1 month. And to me, I always wonder, because I've definitely met a few people like Fabian here, who's like, you'll speak to him about like networking or Kubernetes. And my broad knowledge compared to his depth in one specific field, that is also like quite a challenge, because you can't almost be good at everything. When you look at AWS guys who work for Amazon, you'll generally come in touch with a solution architect who's specialized in a specific field. He's like a control tower expert or security specialist or something, so for me, I want to be the best at it all, and I want to be like a Pokemon Ash Ketchum. So I want to make sure that I really can, have all of this stuff good. But if I'll be as good at Fabian in Kubernetes, or as good as, I don't know, like Kobus in his elastic beanstalk scaling and stuff like that craziness, I don't know. But I'll try.
Yeah. Is that your vibe, Kobus? You're the elastic beanstalk scaling guy.
No.
Okay.
I thought you said you were doing that a lot lately, so.
Yeah. Anyway,
so there's been a lot of focus on it, but I think on that note, so I'm going to greet you and say thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I unfortunately can already hear the kids screaming. The nannies are about to leave, so I need to go entertain a 3-year-old who just ran past.
Thank you so much, Kobus, and Fabian also. All right. Thank you, folks. We have another guest joining us though, but thanks Kobus, thanks Fabian.
Cool.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having us.
everyone.
Yeah. Bye. All right, folks, we have a very, very special guest. This is the one and only Jan Shui. Jan, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey guys, good to see you.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't believe this, guys. Yeah, I mean, I've read so many of his articles. It's quite unbelievable. I mean, I think this is like the serverless Lambda guru when I was starting out, like trying to do some serverless stuff. Here is David, like Googling it, and there's this Yankee name, and I'm like the burning monk, like on Twitter, follow this guy, everything. You know, it's crazy. How's it going?
Yeah, for those of you all who don't know, Jan Shui is like a legend. He is known online as the Burning Monk. So anything serverless, just follow his blogs, follow his website. He has a new course on AppSync out. It's a masterclass. You have to check it out, very in-depth. Jan, two questions. One is tell us about yourself and the courses that you built. But also second, why the name The Burning Monk?
So I guess maybe I can start with the name. When I was growing up, I was a big fan of Rage Against the Machine. And I remember watching The Matrix when I was, I think I was in the high school or something, and that just knocked my socks off. And right at the end, there was Rage Against the Machine playing, Wake Up, and got really into them as in that sort of period of my growth, youth, and. The debut album was a picture of this Vietnamese monk who set himself on fire in protest to, I think, Americans, occupation of Vietnam at the time, and so that's when got the name The Burning Monk, and that since then it kind of just got stuck, usually for my email, Twitter, and other places. And now it kind of just became, I don't know, like a mimic moniker for myself. And for myself, I've been working with AWS for over 10 years now. I think I moved to my first job working with AWS was end of 2009. So it's been over 10 years. I've gone through the whole, using EC2 to Elastic Beanstalk, you guys are just talking about, which I think is still probably underused service. If you just need to run containers, you don't need to do all the sort of multi-tenancy to optimize the resource allocation, all of that stuff. Just run a container on Elastic Beanstalk. It works just fine, a lot simpler than ECS and Kubernetes. Gone through a whole sort of Dockerization phase, moving everything from EC2 to Docker, and then Lambda came out. I think it was 2016 when they added the API gateway and a few other things. Then I really started to really use Lambda really heavily. That's when I was working for a social network, and we pretty much moved the whole social network to run on serverless with Lambda API gateway, DynamDB, the whole shebang, and that was really informative experience in terms of how I learned about using how to build production grade serverless applications, or the problems you run into, some of the problems or the gaps in the tooling and all of that. And the last couple of years, I've been mostly focusing on serverless technologies and doing a lot of blog posts, working for companies that's been working with serverless and containers. And the last year and a half, I guess I've gone independent. So I've been working for myself with clients who are interested in going serverless, and they want to someone to help tell them how to do it right and show them all the problems before they run into it. So that's what I've been doing for the last maybe 18 months. And as part of that, I've also been doing some training workshops. And more recently, I opened my new AppSync course for early access. You can find it at the appsyncmasterclass.com. So basically, you're going to be building a Twitter clone using AppSync and DynamDB and Lambda on the back end. And then on the front end, you're going to be using Vue.js and Tailwind and Amplify for static hosting. Actually working with one of your colleagues, Gerard Sanz, who's part of the Amplify team. Really good guy, really fun guy to work with. He can show you all the tropes on the front end, and I'm focusing on the back end side of things.
Nice. So a couple of things. One is, folks, you have to check out the burningmonk.com and also AppSync Masterclass. I put it up in the chat, so do check it out. I've followed a lot of what Jan has written on dev.to and Twitter and on his blog as well. Second, Jan, I thought you were very cool, but now that has gone up after you told me you're named after Rage Against the Machine thing. Big fan of the band. I had that poster up in my room as well, their debut album with the thing. So yeah, I love that stuff. David, have you done a lot of the app development, Amplify, AppSync, GraphQL, that whole?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think it's a great way to start your project really quickly. AppSync is also really awesome when it comes to having like that WebSocket real-time, type setup that you're looking for. And then Amplify, yeah, speeding up the project. I'd say maybe the only thing that it would be cool to see a little bit more of is maybe like a definition of that API.ts file that gets created in TypeScript land and all of that magic. I think it's a really cool bunch of tech to use if you want to like build something that just has Cognito, Auth, your GraphQL schemas and stuff, all of that stuff defined. If you want to get up and running, it really is a great bunch of services, and also I was actually quite curious. I saw recently AWS released, now you have like VPC endpoints for Lambdas. I was like wondering if, I was thinking that's actually a pretty cool thing. Now you don't actually have to have like Lambdas in a VPC anymore. You can just kind of have them as your managed Lambdas and still communicate with VPC traffic, which I think is kind of cool.
I thought the private link thing was only for services that need to call Lambda. They don't have to go to public internet. It's more for, say, if you got some containers running inside VPC, rather than having to, and you want to call Lambda directly, rather than have to go through public internet, you just go through the VPC tunnel that you get with VPC endpoint. That's what the private link gives you. But your functions themselves didn't have to be inside VPC anyway. I think the recommendation is still don't put Lambda functions, don't give them access to your VPC unless you really have to, because there's still additional configurations and all of that. And Lambda functions, they're already running on EC2 servers that are running inside Amazon's VPCs already. So from the sort of security side of things, you don't need to put them inside. Well, you don't need to give them additional VPC configuration. But there are some places where you do want to lock down your function so that you can't talk to the public internet and things like that. Which you still have the VPC and you can use VPC endpoints, but there's a lot of gotchas that you can run to when you're dealing with VPC. Especially things like a NAT gateway and a few other things like that. I've heard someone told me, I think it was Corey Quinn, said one time that he had a client that was spending like $300,000 a month or something stupid like that on the NAT gateway, because they're sending, I think, like really exabytes amount of data through NAT gateway, and they was charged at the gigabytes per gigabyte. So he got them to use some NAT instances from AWS Marketplace, and that basically dropped from 300,000 to almost nothing.
That's actually interesting because Yancy, like one of the patterns we solved here is that like for instance, when you have like 10,000 AWS accounts,
right,
and it's a big enterprise, right, and they have three AZs in each account or something like that, so they have 3 NAT gateways per account. You're looking at like 30,000 NAT gateways, which are costing $30 a month. You're like, whoa! You actually realize the price of that, and you're like, this is like $1 million a month. What's happening here? You're just like burning it, pouring it down the tube. So yeah, definitely NAT gateways can be confusing, right? Watching that traffic and stuff, but always a good pattern to know.
Yeah, I think as soon as you get into some of the networking stuff that you often have to deal with containers and EC2 instances, there's just a lot of depth, a lot of things you have to learn, and also debugging is really difficult. I mean, I've been working with AWS for 10 years. I still get tripped over on there's one bit of configuration somewhere, maybe the network ACL, maybe the security group, but something somewhere is blocking the traffic, and you're like, okay, have to play detective and go through every single stage and make sure that all the network configurations are perfectly aligned.
I think it's really cool.
It's hard.
I think it's really cool to hear you say that, to be honest.
Yeah, if Yancy gets tripped up once in a while, then I feel okay with myself. So yeah, guys, actually we have a couple of questions. David, this one is from slightly earlier, but which is a simple question, but are there data centers in SA from Daily Push? Well, yes, but yeah, David, do you use that region a lot?
I wasn't in South Africa when Cape Town launched. Quibus would have been a better person to ask this. But the data center was an AWS grade data center was constructed, I believe, in Cape Town, South Africa. And so, yes, there's one.
There is, and there is a region as well in Cape Town. Not all of the services are right now running on Cape Town, but there is a region. All right, this is a question up your alley, I guess, which is I'm trying to attach EFS to Lambda. Is there any way to create an access point from Ludic's world?
Yeah, so you can create access points in the EFS itself. You don't create in Lambda, but when you configure the connection from Lambda to EFS, you have to choose which access point that you've created inside the EFS, console, or you can do that with CloudFormation.
And I think so, like Jan said earlier, remember to always check those subnets traffic. Those knackle.
Knackles, yeah. Those damn knackles. Yeah. Jan, I'm going to ask you like a very generalist sort of question because you've been in this space for a while, which is, do you think not enough companies and people are taking advantage or using GraphQL in general as, as a paradigm? Do you think people still rely on REST too much and, they can improve a lot more by GraphQL, or am I just being, because I like how GraphQL and the thought process behind it, but from someone who works very closely in the field, what do you think?
I definitely think there's still a lot of growth to be had. Certainly, I'm seeing more and more companies are being aware of GraphQL and being curious about AppSync. And I think the fact that AppSync exists today is great. It lowered the bar of entry a lot for a lot of companies because having to write all of your GraphQL server and write the resolvers, all of that, and dealing with things like caching, which is quite a tough problem when it comes to GraphQL, is not straightforward, especially when you're talking about a brand new paradigm for how you write your APIs and also how you write your backend code as well and the front end code. But that's definitely growing. I'm seeing a lot of customers now who are talking to me about the GraphQL and AppSync. But there's a lot of customers that I'm dealing with are still predominantly REST. And one of the things that comes up a lot is while we've got this REST-based microservices, how do we go towards having something in microservice, in GraphQL in the future, and REST AppSync having that HTTP integration? I think that's quite a good starting point whereby you put AppSync in front of everything and just use HTTP connection to all of your backend REST endpoints, and then you've got essentially your sort of backend for front end thing in AppSync. And then over time, you can migrate things over to use the direct integration with Lambda or with DynamoDB or RDS or whatnot. So that's definitely something that's been getting more popular, I think, in the last 12 months, at least for me, partly because I've been doing some work. I've been talking to conferences about my experience building things with AppSync. So that may be why people are talking to me about AppSync and GraphQL more in the last year than before. But certainly, I think there's a lot of interest in GraphQL, but not enough of it has turned into actual proof of concept or actual production implementation or deployment in the world yet. But I think a lot of that's going to come. It's going to take time because people have got all these years of worth of REST APIs that they can't just dump all of that and then move to GraphQL in one day. But for new projects, I think GraphQL and AppSync is just so productive. I did a project with a Belgium client a couple of months ago, I guess. We built a new social network that lets you publish. I'm organizing a basketball match. Anyone can join me, and the universities can also publicize their sporting programs. Students can go and book classes to do yoga class or something, and things like that. And we did the whole thing for the back end in under 4 weeks with just me working part time. I was doing maybe 2-3 days a week for those guys, and we built pretty much the whole version, the first version of it with AppSync, Lambda, and DynamoDB and Cognito. and they're just so productive. And it's, we've been running for over, I guess, about 2 months now. The cost wise is I think we're paying like $60 a month or something like that in total.
Peanuts.
$35 was for AppSync caching. And I spent a lot of time tweaking the caching configuration, so I get on average 99% cache hit rate. So most of the requests doesn't even go to API, go to DynamoDB, and we're paying something like $15 for CloudWatch. Got dashboards and quite a few things set up. So that's basically most of my cost. We haven't crossed the Lambda free tier yet. That's I think we're getting about something like 160,000 requests a day, maybe 200,000 requests a day, but yes, most of that is just getting soaked up by AppSync caching. So far it's gone really well. The client's really happy, and the angel investor can't believe how much we got done for the budget that we had. I think especially for startups and for new projects, GraphQL and AppSync is just is superb.
Yeah, I agree, because I have played around a little bit with Amplify and AppSync. Just the time taken to get something up and running, like Jan said, is so less. Like Daily Push said, there's a lot of REST out there, almost as bad as SOAP. Yeah, well, I've almost forgotten those days. David, since we were talking about, whether in the future you think GraphQL will be big, etc., you work closely in the field. Any trends that you see in the future, not just with GraphQL specifically, but with cloud in general, that you see picking up in, like, say, a year or 2 years, perhaps?
Whoa, that's a hard.
Putting you on the spot. Yeah.
No. I mean, I wish I was a fortune teller because I'd make a lot of money. But I would say that right now, like, if I were to just kind of examine what's happening in the world as it is, like with this pandemic that we're living in, unfortunately, but it seems to me that there's a lot more companies that are looking to move their stuff to cloud. They either want to get access to their stuff in a data center, or they're just looking to actually have their stuff more available now. So it feels like there is definitely a boom happening in cloud with our customers, and we're seeing a lot more customers. So to me, I think cloud is going nowhere. It's only going to get bigger. When it comes to technologies like WebSockets or AppSync or whatever it is, to me, those are just like tools. I do think they're very important, but for me, the bigger picture is, hey, are we solving these clients' requirements, or are we actually solving the problem that we first started way back in the day? It was the service-orientated architecture, right? We're trying to solve this puzzle, this rest is dead thing. So hopefully in the future, we'll stop creating abstractions and we'll actually solve the problem of how do we do this data at a massive size and stuff like that. And I think we are getting closer with things like event storming and Kubernetes and serverless and all of this stuff. But I think it's really interesting. And for me, one of the big science things I'm really interested in is kind of this quantum computing and machine learning. I mean, what can we kind of squeeze out of these two really big sounding words and actually make a reality? Because, I mean, when you actually look at it for its face value, the stuff is absolutely bizarre when you try to read quantum physics, but somehow it's actually a reality now, and we can teleport things and we can entangle things. So that's pretty exciting to me. And now that you kind of have this service in the cloud where you can actually go and play with a quantum computer, I mean, wow. For me, I think there's a lot of value that we'll probably be able to tap into one day, in people's data there. But right now, I mean, it's totally, I love everything about AWS is because they're constantly keeping on the forefront of the technology, pushing out patches, pushing out new services and all of that, So I would say stick with the cloud, AWS, and that's probably where the future's at, if you ask me, for the next 5 years anyway.
Thanks for the plug, David.
Well, technology changes so quickly. I feel like I'd be... But actually on the AppSync note, we're also seeing a couple of our customer teams starting to use that a lot. I mean, I think PostNL, you heard, is one of the guys who are actually using it. We do some work for them, and AppSync, yeah, exactly. It's one of these more future technologies, which was probably invented about 10 years ago already, but it's definitely worth using to get that value earlier.
Yeah, for sure. We have a question from Van Durer, and I think this is specifically for Jan about your session. Jan, you'll have to climb up above the question a little bit, I think, or maybe we can, yeah, there we go. Or actually, wait, I can do this. Yeah, if you want. No, but yeah, question.
That's okay.
Yeah, for you, Jan, question. So, which is about, the saga pattern. Go for it.
Yeah, so the question is about the saga patterns, and also I talked about potentially, saga patterns if you need to deal with dispute transactions, and I also talked about specifically other. Sometimes it's better to architect your way so that architect those distributed transactions out of your application. So the specific example I talked about was if you got a Lambda function behind API gateway that have to say queue something up in the SQS and then also write something to DB. So there you've got a distributed transaction where you're updating states in two different systems. So if you want to do distributed transactions properly, you're looking at maybe using saga patterns and be able to do rollbacks and things like that. Whereby in our cases I use DB streams just so that I don't have that one function that have to talk to update state in multiple places, and I use the DB streams to then basically sequentialize everything instead. So the question was, are there any other alternatives for cases where the service both ingest different parts of the request in terms of maybe reading the data and reading the metadata? I think for those, those are probably less. I probably don't think of them as much as a distributed transaction because you're reading from multiple places, but you're not really updating any state. Where we really got to be careful with a distributed transaction is when you have to update state in different systems, because there, if halfway through the transaction your process died or timed out, your Lambda function ran out of time, then you end up with state changes in one place, but not in the other place. Where when you try to read it in the future, and I've got the user, but not the some of the metadata about a user that should also exist together. So that's where cases I want to use something like saga pattern to make sure that if the transaction dies halfway, then I roll back data in both places so that we have a clean state. So if you just need to read data from different places, I think you can just do that without having to use anything more complicated, because you're not updating state in other systems. So really, it's saga patterns and things like that is really for when you need to update state in multiple systems.
I think we have a follow-up question from Van Durer, which is, I meant updating two systems, one with data and the other with metadata. So maybe S3 and Dynamo at the same time.
Right. So in that case, you can do them actually in both ways, because both of them has got some kind of like a trigger. You can either write something in DB and then have a stream fix the trigger Lambda function and then update put stuff in S3, or you do the other way around, put stuff in S3 and then trigger Lambda function, and then write a metadata into DB table. So in this case, I assume you're using S3 because the object is big, so you can't just jump into DB. So most likely, if it's me, if that's the case, then I will update this, put something to S3, and then trigger Lambda function with the S3 trigger, and then put a metadata into DB table after that, so that then again I don't have to worry about running to two places in one function execution, and then if DB operation failed, what do I do with the S3 object? I just save in the bucket. So that's probably something I would do to again architect the distributed transaction out of my application.
Nice.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, Van Durer, that is a very detailed answer, so hopefully that's all right. Thanks, he says. I'm assuming he, sorry.
I should have been typing that out on Stack Overflow.
So for folks just joining in, we are running this in parallel with Community Day in the Netherlands. So it's happening live right now. So if you want to check out some great talks, you can go register at awscommunityday.nl. It's free. You can also access the talks later on. We have talks from people including Jan Shui and also Dr. Ferner Vogels and Corey Quinn. So do check it out. This is Office Hours, so ask us any questions. We have David and we have Jan. People who have vast experience in AWS and tech. So slight change in topic, David and Jan. So today's theme has sort of unwittingly been like retro computing, and like did you start gaming on Nintendo and Commodore 64 and stuff? So like what was your first experience with tech as such? David, go for it, and Jan, we'll come to you after.
Okay, sure. Man, I think I'm like every other dude who's I think like, you meet a few people and they like got this passion for tech, and they generally have a similar story. But for me, it was, I think I was like 7 or 8. My dad had a ZX Spectrum. I kind of found it somewhere. I like plugged it into a whole bunch of radios, like did Conquest or like some weirdy QBasic game, started writing my first little bit of programs there. I actually tried to write my own game first, was like called a battle car game. So I think my retro computing probably started on a ZX Spectrum, and it ended up in high school where I was madly addicted to Counter-Strike, and then I had to like say no to computer gaming anymore.
I know exactly what you mean. I went through that same Counter-Strike phase, and during my 12th standard exams, my parents were like, nope, this is important, no Counter-Strike for you, you better study. And they probably were right. In fact, our colleague Darko, who was on the stream earlier, has a ZX Spectrum that still works, and he plays around with it. He collects like retro computing. So you should check out his streams, he talks about it. Oh, nice. Okay.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. Jan, what about you?
So I actually started pretty late. When I was growing up in China, my grandparents didn't understand computers. Why do you need one? So I didn't have my computer until I was I think 15 or 16 when I moved to the UK, and my dad got me a PC at the time. I think it was Windows 98. So that was my first experience with computers and tech. But pretty much straight away, I was really fascinated with all the things you can do. Before I went to college, I took some night classes in the local college thing in the UK. Learn a bit about the C++, and just trying to understand the basics of programming and whatnot. And then I went and I decided to go and do a computer science degree. I did the 4 years master's in the University College London, UCL. And so yeah, since then I've been just working in I guess as engineer for the last 15 years, and it's been great. I don't know. Of all the things I've done in my life, that's probably one of the best decisions I've made to have a career, doing something that I actually love doing. And look at most people I know, they do their job as a job. They go home, they can't wait to finish job and go home. Whereas a lot of us, we finish work and then we start doing some side projects. So I think the people do something that you actually enjoy doing for living and get paid really well for it. I think that's been incredibly lucky for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, Jan, earlier we were talking about how when I think most of us were young, it was like, get off your computer and like actually go study, or like don't do computer science, like do like electrical engineering or something like that. And now it's stuff like, why don't you study computer science? Don't do YouTubing and gaming, right? Like YouTuber is not a career. Study like computer science like the rest of us, but it is like a legitimate career for a lot of people. Like Daily Push is saying, lucky you didn't get caught up in Counter-Strike, because I think David and I went down that path. And
like 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
Get back, man.
Yeah. In fact, I used to play a ton of CS. We had like a clan, and I remember the first time in that it was a gaming parlor. We didn't have fast enough internet back then, and the first time someone got Dota 1, and they were like, hey, you have to check this out, this game is amazing. I played it once and I'm like, nope, this is going to be way too addictive, that's another 10 years I'm not going to play this. So yeah, I never played it after that.
But what's interesting though for me is that like, and it's similar to something that Jan said, is that like, so I took this addiction that I had for computer games and I basically figured out how I could gamify AWS in my own brain. And now when I'm like in the console and I'm going around and I'm setting up stuff really quickly, it almost feels like a game to me. It's like this, I'm trying to build this motor memory of like, how I can play this AWS game the quickest, and it's kind of fun. I'm wondering how I could even gamify that a little bit, and actually that's why I've been playing a little bit with Amplify. But it's really nice. For me, that is, I think, one of the big ways that people can actually really learn AWS well. It's like make it fun, gamify it. If you find it like a fun game, you're probably going to be fantastic at it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. We have a question. Yeah,
sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is that I actually spent most of my career working for companies that in the sort of mobile and the Facebook gaming space as well. And there's some really interesting technical challenges that you face in those worlds because, again, you're dealing with, Facebook games at its peak, you had lots of games that had hundreds of millions of daily active users. That's some really interesting scaling challenges, especially at a time when there was simple DB, there was no DynamoDB. And I remember those days, early days, and I built some real-time multiplayer battle arena games. One previous jobs, maybe about 3 years ago, I guess. At this point, there's some really low latency requirement for mobile. I have to work on mobile and pretty high throughput as well. So there's some really interesting technical challenges that when you work in the gaming space as well, and a lot of them also runs on AWS. So a lot of time, you're pushing a lot of the things you get with AWS. Yeah. So
Yep.
yeah,
That's what I like about the app sync as well. I mean, it's great for like gaming and stuff like that. And then you got like your Game Lift, your Lumberyard, Sumerian, all of these other cool services as well, which are really fun to play with as well. And I think are also probably somewhere there in the future.
Yeah. I think this will be a question up your alley, which is from Tiom, which is, can you use AppSync with the JS client, like Vue.js together with Java HTTP API backends, or is JS required at the back?
Yeah, you can absolutely use the Java at the backend. So GraphQL is basically, you've got there's a spec that you can find the GraphQL server implementations in pretty much any language. So you can just either run a container that basically runs your GraphQL server that you implement in Java, or you can use AppSync, and the AppSync can be able to, can integrate with say DynamoDB directly in most cases, or RDS or Elasticsearch, and then where you need to do some bespoke computation, you can have Lambda function, and of course you can have the Lambda function written in Java. But if you're going to be doing things that are user-facing through AppSync, for example, then Java may not be the best language just because of the code start you're going to see is going to be a lot higher compared to JavaScript or Python or Golang. The Java and the .NET Core are still, in terms of code start performance, quite a bit higher compared to those other runtimes. But you absolutely can. You can. And if you want to mitigate the problem with code start with Java, then you can also use provision concurrencies with Lambda nowadays, which essentially you're paying for uptime for having containers running 24/7, even when you don't need to use them. But the upside is that you don't see cold starts where you're hitting those warm containers running.
Cool. For folks just joining in, again, there is Community Day Netherlands happening live right now. So check out the link below. You can register and check out the links later as well. I'm going to introduce you to my colleague Javier to the stream. Javier, welcome to the stream.
Oh,
so,
sorry,
Javier,
I was on mute. Sorry about that.
Okay. Oops. Yeah. So Javier, let me introduce you to David and Yanshui. We've got people from the community here. Javier is an developer advocate with AWS. Some of you all might be familiar with him. Javier, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, so I'm a developer advocate based in Madrid. I take care of the community in Spain and Portugal. I specialize mostly on data analytics and machine learning, but happy to talk about anything else.
Mm-hmm. Javier, so the unofficial theme for today has sort of been like retro computing and retro gaming. So we've all been talking about the first time we played a computer game or first time we used tech. So what was yours?
Cool. So first I used a computer game. I guess I was about 6 or 7 because I have 2 older sisters and they had some old. I believe the first machine we had at home was an CPC. And shortly after, we have a Spectrum CX48, and it was super fun to wait for 20 minutes of listening to for things to load, and then to play. It was quite interesting to play with cassettes. So yeah, and I have to say those games were super fun. And today I've tried that a few times to play retro games, and I don't really enjoy them much. But at the time, were super addictive. So it's I believe much more interactive in ways that some of the games that you can see today, in which there's a lot of cinematics. It's super awesome, but you cannot really move freely in some cases. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So I used to do, back in India, I used to do a lot of sessions for universities, and I used to teach a little bit about like the history of computing and that sort of thing. And when I used to say things like, in like the early 2000s or late 90s, you needed a telephone, like a landline, to connect to the internet, the kids used to actually laugh like I was making a joke. And then I said, no, it's true, it's true. You know, you couldn't talk on the phone and have your internet connection at the same time, and they'd all be laughing and like, no, it's true, you don't believe it, you don't know the pain. Yeah, things have changed a lot since then.
And now we're like spawning up like 10,000 serverless containers in a second in the cloud.
We've come a long way. Yeah. So folks, again, AWS Community Day NL happening live right now. Do sign up, check it out. As Geo DNB says, I miss the modem noise. That noise is so imprinted in my brain. Like I can make that exact same noise at any time and, you know, recognize that. I'm sure all of you all have as well. Yeah.
Oh man. in South Africa, we didn't even get DSL for a long time. We had like ISDN. It was terrible, man. So actually, that was the weirdest thing. I actually thought coming from South Africa to Europe, I was going to get fantastic ADSL, and it would be like never be laggy again. That myth is debugged. It's unfortunately not true. We have just the same everywhere.
Yeah, I think most of us are nostalgic to it. Like I can see in the comments, but we like the speeds now. You know, you don't want to go back to that 56 kbps modem. That it's just nostalgia. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, I with the Mario T-shirt actually today. So you know.
Ah.
It's from the Mario
nice.
Bros. Yeah. It's just by accident, but yeah.
Nice. Jan, question for you from Rudik's World. Do Lambda functions come with availability zones? Can we change that?
So Lambda is a regional service. You can't change which availability zones that your function gets deployed to. But AWS deploys your function to at least three availability zones by default. So if one of the AZs is down, there's nothing you have to do. It just gets automatically routed. So you get a lot of that that redundancy by default, and also you don't pay for the extra because redundancy in the different multi-AZ setup. Whereas with containers, you probably end up running always 12, 4 in every 3 AZs, 4 in every AZ. And you pay for them when you don't use them. So with Lambda, you kind of get that multi-AZ out of the box without having to pay for the sub redundancy when you don't need it. But you can't change which AZ that you actually end up getting deployed to. I don't think you need to worry. I don't think why you need to worry about it per se. Is there any reason why you would need to worry about which AZ you're actually in? Is it just to worry about? Is it about the transfer cost, data transfer cost in AZ or something? Maybe if you can expand on your question and see, maybe why you need to know which AZ you're in and why you want to change or why you need to change them. I think that's quite interesting.
I'm interested to hear what he says, but I was thinking, can't you deploy lambdas like into a subnet? So theoretically, I don't know, wouldn't it be possible to like maybe exhaust like a subnet's possible SADAs, or something like that? I don't know, but you're right. You probably need to understand more about the question, but.
Yeah, so that's why the best practice recommendation normally is that you will you would configure a separate subnet for Lambda that away from your container, so that when you do have a sudden spike in traffic and you end up using more IP addresses, you don't end up creating IP address exhaustion in your subnets. That means you can't bring up new containers and whatnot. But nowadays that's not really a problem anymore because before the IP addresses are allocated dynamically when Lambda creates new workers, but because they changed the underlying networking, so how it's done with a Firecracker, so now you only need one IP address per unique combination of different network configuration like VPC ID, security group IDs, and things like that. So you have a lot more consolidation in terms of IP addresses that you allocate for the elastic network ENI interface. Yeah, that's right. With ENIs, so you don't need many of them. So you're not likely to run into the kind of problems that used to happen with IP exhaustion.
That's interesting. I actually didn't know that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so they changed that for both Lambda and Fargate. I think it was the last reinvent when the whole Firecracker thing came out. So that was a big change for a lot of people, because the VPC was a massive pain point. Every time you need a new ENI, there's a 10-second cold start, which was pretty brutal. But now that it's all done during deployment, as opposed to at runtime, means that you don't have that 10-second cold start penalty anymore. At least very, very rarely will you see that anymore. There's still some cases whereby if you got configurations that has been idle and not used for a long time, those ENIs do get decommissioned, which means that the next time you potentially run a function inside VPC and you need the ENI for the ENI, then you have to create them on demand. But that's very rarely. So if you got functions that are constantly running or runs regularly, you wouldn't see that at all. So Rudix says I'm asking that because of EFS. That's a good question. I think with EFS, if you just configure, so normally I would configure just, I guess at least 4 subnets, so that my function would always be able to access some of them. I think your functions, it doesn't matter which AZ is in, is still able to access EFS. It's just going to use the access point you've configured. So if you have got 2 AZs you've configured, then you would try to use those. I guess you probably do some round robin and use one of the 2. Certainly with security groups, it does that, so that when you configure subnets for your Lambda functions, you can configure just one, but your function will still be running in multiple AZs. It's just that when they need the ENIs, that they would take it out of that one subnet, as opposed to if you configure 3 subnets, then it will try to pick from different subnets and try to balance the where those ENIs are allocated. So I'm pretty sure that it doesn't matter which subnet you configure for EFS, your function will still be able to access them, even if the function itself is actually running in a different AZ.
I think that is right. I think I've even done that before. So.
Yeah, Rudix World, hope that answered your question. Thanks, Jan and David, for that incredibly detailed answer. Javier, have you been hacking something? Have you been playing with some cool stuff of late?
Well, actually, I haven't been hacking too many interesting things lately, but there are a couple of things I want to give a try. I'm a bit busy these days preparing new things for reInvent, but whenever I get the time, I want to actually try something we just announced today, which is yesterday. I'm not entirely sure. So we announced you can now create user-defined functions for Redshift using Lambda. So that means you can basically write in any Lambda-supported language, and you can create a UDF in Ruby or Go or JavaScript, or and that's super interesting to extend what you can do with your data warehouse. So that's one of the things I want to try, and I really like to see how serverless is getting to more and more places, even to a more traditional data warehouse, which is what Redshift is supposed to be. I really, it's super welcome for me to see how you are free from hardware.
Yeah, and for someone who's not very familiar with this, Javier, what is the implication of something like this? Right now that you can do this, what is the implication of something like this? Like, what more can you do with being able to access like Redshift via Lambda?
So Redshift is super cool because it's a data warehouse, which means you put a lot of data there and you run queries, and it's super cool because it's just SQL. And that's super cool because everybody likes SQL, and everybody can learn SQL in an easy way. But that's also the bad part. It's just SQL. So you have only a number of functions, and that's about it. So you cannot do anything else with SQL. For example, you have uppercase or lowercase to capitalize or put in lowercase. But if you want to do, for some reason, because I don't know, if you want to do some weird capitalization, like, I don't know, each odd letter is going to be upper and the other is going to be lower, you're out of luck. In SQL, you cannot do that. Well, if you can create UDF, user-defined functions, you can basically create a function to do anything within, which is possible. in your SQL query. And maybe capitalization wouldn't be a good example, maybe, but you can think of many interesting things. Like, for example, I don't know, maybe you want to do some kind of string encoding, or there is one IP function that is not supported by Redshift, and you want to, to create your own function to translate from IP to some other thing. In the past, I used these UDFs sometimes to in databases that didn't support geospatial, which is not the case of Redshift, by the way. But on those databases, I would create simple UDFs to give me what is within the bound limits of some geoposition. So those kind of things. So you can extend basically the built-in functions. And the cool thing is you can extend them now with any Lambda function. So that means freedom to choose the language you want and pay only for what you use.
That is very interesting indeed.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
I know what I'm checking out after this.
Yeah. Okay, David, we'll have to get Ben in, but before we say bye to you, one last question. And for folks who just joined in, you missed, but David actually has 9 out of the 13 or 12 certifications. So David, any last inspirational words from you, because a lot of people who watch our stream want to get the certifications done and want to hack on AWS.
Yeah, I think if that's it, it's pretty easy. It's like, hey, give me a shot or give any of these great people a shot. I think they'll chat to you anytime. I think the AWS community is really open and fun. And hook me up on LinkedIn or Schuberg Phyllis on LinkedIn and have a chat with me and I can help you out. And if you want to maybe get your career even quicker there, maybe I can even help you with some right source material to take you in the right direction really quickly. But it's been a pleasure. Honestly, it's been really awesome. It's been a bit of a dream to always do this. And thanks, guys, for your time.
Thank you so much, David. That was fun. We'll see you around and cheers. Have a good one. Yeah, bye.
Cheers.
All right,
so
folks.
I think Rudik's World has got a follow-up question. So I think Rudik's, from what the error says, it sounds like the configuration you're using for your Lambda function in terms of what subnet it can run in has to match the EFS configuration as well, so that your EFS access point need to be available to all of those subnets. Because I guess the implication there is that Lambda can potentially allocate the ENI to any of the subnets, and if you happen to allocate it to one of the subnets, and that subnet doesn't have access to your EFS access point, then that can be a problem. So I think that's what the error is saying.
Okay, Rudik's World, hope that answered your question. I'm actually going to bring in another person to the stream, which is Ben. Ben, welcome to the stream.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
Ben, your audio is slightly StreamYard does this. There is in the settings, just check there is a echo cancellation and some audio processing, just untick those, you should be fine. And you might have to restart again. StreamYard does this to audio a little bit. Yeah. And you're on mute, I think. Yeah, just refresh, Ben, you'll be fine. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes tech, I think, tries a little too hard to do something. So I think they assume people have crappy earphones. So when you get a good mic, etc., StreamYard tries to process it, and that happens. It used to happen to me all the time as well. Folks, we are going to be here for another 23 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We have Jan, we have Javier, and we have Ben who's joining us again. Ben, let's try your audio again. Still can't hear you, Ben. Yeah, it's probably, you can, yeah. Javier, do you have any reInvent sessions coming up?
Yeah, actually I do, but I'm not sure how much we can share about, the reInvent sessions we are doing. So I believe one which is safe to talk about, I'm going to be speaking about real-time analytics. So, we have Kinesis data analytics for Apache Flink, and Apache Flink is an open source product to do streaming analytics, super cool. So I have a session on that, and actually it's part of the Spanish track. So yeah, hopefully that will be interesting. So in that one, what I'm going to be speaking about is how you can enable complex event patterns on a string of data. So for example, if you are analyzing the click string of users and you want to detect things like, I don't know, a user in my e-commerce has visits less than 3 pages and go to the checkout and then remove something and then go again to the checkout 3 or 4 times within the same session, and you think that could be a bit weird. So you can analyze those kind of things in a simple enough way by using some of the libraries of Apache Flink. So my session is about that, how you can enable that complex service pattern in real time, which is something quite powerful.
Nice. Definitely looking forward to that, Javier. For those of you all who might not know, this time reInvent is completely virtual. It's a 3-week-long event. You can sign up at reInvent. It's completely free. Just look it up online. The agendas for the keynotes are out right now. The agendas for the other talk, including what Javier is working on, will be out soon. Ben, let's try your audio again. Hopefully it works. Fingers crossed. No, we still can't hear you.
And if you prefer this kind of interactive session, just for you to know, we're going to have plenty of sessions like this, actually on different time zones, because since this year reInvent is going global, we are taking the opportunity to have streaming sessions on different time zones. And Sohan and myself and other people from the team, and of course from other teams, I'm going to be joining there to do recaps and to talk about new things and maybe do some demos and have like live questions on Twitch. So it should be fun. It's going to be more interactive than other year. Of course, not more interactive than being there with the people, but it's going to be something quite new. I believe it's going to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jan, have you been to reInvent, if I may ask?
Yeah, I've been a few times the last couple of years now. I think I've been to maybe 3 or 4 in a row. But yeah, reInvent is always crazy.
Yeah, it's hard for me to describe reInvent. So a lot of my friends, like outside of Amazon, like, hey, you're really lucky you're getting to go to Vegas and all of that. 100% true. But it's also a lot of work at the same time. You're walking around. Again, I'm sounding very like hashtag first world problems type thing, but you're walking around a lot. There are sessions happening. You're not eating well. It's very different. And you don't see the sun for the longest time because you're like in these casinos which have like no windows. It's a very different experience, I must say. It's fun as hell. I agree.
Yeah, I think that probably the biggest thing for me is all the announcements, the keynotes. Those are super exciting. Just to be there when it get announced, and you're like, whoa! I mean, this is what I've been asking for like years. I think that has been probably one of the biggest highlights. But for me, the reInvent. The best thing is just the meeting up with everyone. A lot of people that you only know on social media, and the only time you ever see them is at reInvent when everyone from all around the world sort of get together. There's a lot of that networking. I think those has been probably the highlights for me at reInvent. I think for the last maybe 2 years, I have been mostly just hanging out, meeting people when I was in the Vegas. And then catching up with the talks afterwards on the YouTube, because I don't see those guys ever. Only like those 2 weeks. That's the only time I ever see them. So, but yeah, I kind of missed the whole week track this year. But I'm sure that the keynote are going to be just as exciting.
Yeah, I agree with that. Javier, I'm sure you agree as well. You miss that crowd. You get to meet people from across the world, and like you'll randomly go in and there's this huge bouncy castle there, and you're like, what's happening?
I shouldn't say this, but it's too big for me. I mean, reInvent is just huge. So that thing about having to move, because for those of you that don't know, we are talking about a conference in which about 70,000 people goes there, and it happens at different hotel casinos in Vegas. So basically that means there are talks in parallel at 5 or 6 different hotels, and each hotel you have multiple rooms that are at the same time having breakouts, and walking from one hotel to the other might be 15, 20, even 30 minutes. So depending on the agenda you have for one day, you end up walking a lot, or you just end up compromising and saying, you know what, whatever is in this hotel, I'm watching. Whatever is not in this hotel, I don't care. So it is kind of too big, and then you have to be like queuing for everything. So it's super interesting to of course to speak to people, and I really like to be at the exhibition area where I get to talk to all the integrators and all the people and see what they are building, and that's super cool for me. I actually enjoyed that part much better than entering the sessions, but it's a bit too big. So I really welcome the possibility to enjoy it from home and just not having to walk 30 minutes from one talk to the other just to find out it's full or it's canceled or whatever. So it's like, you know what? So yeah, so it's a good experience. Just, you know, it's just too big for me.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that it's too big, Javier, and I sort of agree, but and this sort of thing happens to me a lot. So for those of you who haven't been to reInvent, there are these things called, I think they're called builder sessions, where it's just you in a table speaking to 5 people, right? So as employees of AWS, mostly solution architects, evangelists, you sit and do like a 1-hour session about a topic, and I was in the Alexa team, so just to 5 people, and there's a room with like 10 tables, so it's 10 employees of AWS speaking to 5 people each. And there are hundreds of these sessions happening at the same time, like Javier said, in like 5 different casinos, whatever. And in the same room at the same time as I was doing one, I met a guy that I went to college with like 10 years prior. Like, we were in the same class in college. I knew he worked for Amazon in Seattle, but we had lost touch completely. And we ended up being in the same room. And we were like, wait, what? Like, what are you doing here? You know, so for all that scale, you know, it sort of brought a couple of people. So yeah, just sharing that story. All right, we have Ben again. We're going to try Ben. Ben, let's try this again.
Yeah, let's try
Oh my God. Man, you sound like Darth Vader right now. Wow, that is scary. Can you try cancelling that echo thing again, Ben, and seeing? And StreamYard does something with the audio. Let's just try that.
Okay, that's better.
Nah, it's pretty rough. Do you have a wired earphone that you could perhaps use? Okay, we can't hear you too well. Folks, in the meanwhile, send us questions. We have Jan, Javier, and hopefully Ben as well when he sorts out his audio. Send us your questions. We're here for about 15 more minutes. I think Jan's here for about 5 more minutes, and we have Javier as well. Yes, this definitely sounds like a bring me to your leader, like I'm I'm an alien. Well said. This is Light Bites, yeah.
Yeah, I was feeling a vibe of Batman, but yeah, this is better.
Yeah. So while Ben gets that sorted, yeah, I want to ask you a question. Now, I think a lot of people who are watching might not be fully in the serverless mode, you know, still in a lot of the slightly older school paradigms. What's a good way to get started? And of course, you have like a bunch of courses, etc. But what's a good starting point, you think?
I think probably the best thing to do is just build something. There's a lot of tutorials online on how to get started with API Gateway and Lambda, with a server framework or SAM or whatever. Take something like that, just build a really easy, quick and easy REST API with API Gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB, and just get a sense of the whole sort of flow of defining your Lambda functions and then deploying them, and then setting up the database, API Gateway, all of that using tools like server framework and SAM, and just see how easy that is. And the great thing is that when you get to the point where with containers and whatnot, often you have to have this whole productionization process of okay, we've got a code, it's working on a laptop, but in production we're going to need a lot more in terms of the auto scaling, the redundancy, all of that, the load balancing and whatnot. You get all of that out of the box. So what kind of works in your dev environment, when you just deploy with SAM or server framework, it's just going to work almost as well when you go to production. There may be other things you got to think about in terms of setting up WAF rules and things like that. But all of those can be pretty trivial and can be done with just a few lines of CloudFormation, or maybe stuff that you already done for your container stack, using the same WAF rules potentially. So I think to just build something, try it out, and that's probably the best way to get started. And then once you get to the point where you've got specific questions, check out my blog and check out there's loads of other people have been writing about specific how do you do specific things with Lambda or serverless, and go from there. And I also got a couple of video courses and workshops that sort of takes you through a lot of the I guess the things around how do you do logging, monitoring, all of that properly for production, so that you've got the right metrics in place, you've got the structured logging, you've got the correlation IDs tracking across your Lambda invocations, and then you've got X-ray traces that you can see and figure out where the problem is when something happens, when something goes wrong, which they do. Unfortunately, we still write bad code or code that can be broken sometimes. So all of those things around the observability and still applies. So yeah, try something, and then once you get into learn a bit more, try read blogs and read articles from other people who's been doing this for a few years now. Because even though people seem to think Lambda is like a new thing, but it's almost as old as Docker. It came out in 2014, so it's about the same age, and it's getting, and the platform getting a lot more mature the last 2 years for sure. A lot of the sort of common pain points people are running to is kind of mostly addressed now.
Like Daily Push who's saying, I think they found metrics and debugging was something that it was difficult to get through. So any tips there, Jan, when you're sort of moving into serverless?
Yeah, so I think you have to sort of rethink how you set up your sort of your monitoring and all of that, because for starters, you actually get a lot of it out of the box. So things like with API Gateway, you've got logs from there. You've got Lambda that's got the built-in log shipping to CloudWatch, and it's got built-in metrics for both API Gateway, AppSync, and Lambda, all of that as well. And you can record the custom metrics using CloudWatch has got this embedded metric format, so that you don't have to talk to CloudWatch from you're using API call. You just write logs to your from Lambda in a specific structure, and then you get custom metrics as well. So it's more about thinking of how you do that. Whereas before you probably use the APM tools that just kind of does everything magically for you. When it comes to Lambda, there are a lot of tools that supports that now as well. So if you look at tools like Lumigo and Abscon, they basically give you a hands-free way to get visibility into your application. You maybe use the console to enable auto tracing, and all of a sudden you can see your Lambda, your Lambda service application. You got API Gateway to Lambda to DynamoDB to stream to the Lambda function to something else. You can see the whole flow, and you can see the logs for all of them side by side. So there's a lot of tools that exist that help you do that already. But of course, when you're not familiar with the ecosystem, that's a learning curve. That's where some of those reading and just trying out things is going to really help you to discover what ecosystems exist already and what practices exist already. Because again, quite a lot of us have been doing this for years now, and we've kind of figured out how to do it. And I've been writing about this specifically about a lot of the observability and things like that for serverless applications for a while. But it's still going to be a case of you actually stumbling on my post and reading about it at the right time, so that before you go into production, you figure out, okay, this is something I got to think about. But yeah, unfortunately, there's I don't know if there's an easy way to do this apart from just do some reading, learning, and trying out the different tools that's out there.
I absolutely agree. I think this is Live Bytes, who is our colleague, by the way, at AWS, and also a techie thought, saying serverless is not just Lambda, it's a whole thing, it's a way of thinking. Yeah. Anyway, Jan, thank you so much for doing this. Everyone, please follow the Burning Monk. Go to theburningmonk.com. He's the Burning Monk on Twitter as well. He has a lot of great courses. You should check it out if you're interested in serverless. Jan, pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Jan.
Okay, Javier, I have you all to myself for the next 10 minutes or so, folks. We have 10 more minutes. You can ask Javier questions.
Unlucky you, but yeah, I believe I saw someone there. Someone asking, what new users need to know about the VPC?
Yes, let me just put that up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe that's a very good one, because those two things, VPC and IAM, I believe they are fundamental for anything on the AWS. And in my experience, it might be because I'm not very brilliant, but in my experience, when you're struggling and something is not working, especially following tutorials or something, the culprits are usually either permissions or network connectivity. So actually investing a little bit of time on understanding VPC and what you can do with that, it's super interesting for me, because in the end, we are on AWS, a virtualized environment. If you don't have network access, of course, you don't have anything. So what new users need to know about VPC? At the very least, I could advise to be familiar, not just with VPC, but with, in general, interconnection, like how different assets, the different zones work with each other, how different regions work with each other. What is the cost of moving data? Because sometimes, especially when you are starting, you don't really take that into consideration. How not only the cost in terms of money, but also latency wise. Sometimes when you start, you want to do everything multi-region, and chances are you are more than fine just doing single region, multiple asset with just some kind of, if you want a disaster recovery plan, but chances are you're not going to need it because failures are very rare in a whole asset, and a region they are super unusual. So I would be familiar with the model of the different AWT zones, and just understand that VPCs are controlled with security groups and they really work together. So just again, like apply the least privilege, always the least privilege approach. So by default, try to make all your VPCs as close as possible. Only open those things that you really need. And at the beginning, that might feel like a bit too tedious. It's like, but I need to open this port and this other and this other, and from this origin. Yeah, I know. And when you are doing just trying out, you might not care about that, but you really need to care about those things on production. So for me, basic VPC will be just understanding how the model works, how the pricing works, and how security works on a VPC. Other than that, they're super flexible. You can do pretty much anything you want with them. You can have VPC flow logs. You can apply extra security. You can connect a VPC with on-premises. You can interconnect or peer different networks. You can pretty much do anything you want with that. But the basics, that will be what I would be considered at the beginning.
Yep, thanks. Interesting that you said flow logs, Javier, because both a techie thought and daily push on chat have mentioned flow logs. So yeah, Rudik's World, hopefully that answered your question. In fact, there's another question from Rudik's World, which I can take for once, which was about Lambda metrics and CloudWatch. Is there a way to disable them for a specific function? Well, there isn't a way to technically disable logging for a Lambda function, but you can actually do something cool, which is create a separate IAM permission for that Lambda function and deny logging for that. So in a way, you're blocking the logs using IAM to write to CloudWatch. Again, make sure you have a good enough use case for it, of course, because you obviously want to log things, but you can't. There is no switch to on off, but use IAM to block the logs, unless Javier, if there is some other method to do that.
You know better than me about these things. When it comes to Lambda, I am a user, but not the most advanced user. So for these things, I trust you.
Okay. All right, folks, we have 4 more minutes. Please send us any questions that you have for Javier. And after 4 minutes, I'm going to drive you all to Community Day NL, where the closing keynote will be happening. So get your questions in for now. Javier, I actually have one question, which is we did an office hours on databases specifically sometime back, and almost all of the questions were about TimeStream. And this was just before we had launched TimeStream, and now that is actually launched. Can you tell us a bit about it? I know it's very interesting from how it works, what it does, and a lot of our viewers might be interested in what it does as well. So can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, I'm totally unprepared for this, but yeah, I can talk about TimeStream.
I like putting you on the spot, Javier.
So first things first, TimeStream is a time series database. That means it's interesting for the use case when you have data that has a timestamp and it's changing. For example, if you are doing Internet of Things and you are getting information from machines, for example, temperature sensors or things like those, or if you are tracking some medical signal or stock, stock values, something like that, or weather information. So anything which has a timestamp and a value or several values and is changing. So we call each combination of each ID you are tracking, it's different ID, will be a time series. The time series are just, timestamp, dimension, which might be, for example, temperature or I don't know, or position, whatever you want, and then the value. So that's about it. That's the basics. So why we need a special database for that? Because time series tend to be very fast, and by very fast I mean 100,000 millions events per second fast. That's okay. We don't worry about that. So for those things, you need to have a database which is very fast to ingest data and also very fast to query the data. And it's not going to break the bank when it comes to storing all that data. So basically, with Amazon TimeStream, when you are ingesting data, it gets ingested directly into an in-memory database. So you can query very quickly all the data, but you can define what after being in memory for a while, the data automatically it goes to this storage, and you don't have to worry about that. You can still query the data which is on this storage, which is the older data. So you don't have to do anything special. You run your SQL queries, and you don't have to know if the data is in memory or not, but automatically it's going to change there. So you don't have to worry about that. You can define retention periods, and we have special functions to define granularity or to do interpolation. Imagine, for example, you are tracking data and you want to get, tell me the average I have per device every 15 seconds. But maybe you are getting measures every 20 seconds for one device, 25 for the other, 15 for the other, and sometimes you are missing values. So how do you reason about that? Well, with TimeStream gives you with your functions for doing things like interpolation, which basically means, oh, even if I'm getting data at different time resolutions, I want you to give me the interpolate values so I can draw a chart or I can, calculations. So and it gives you different strategies for interpolation. You can choose the average or the last value or a default value or different things. But you basically have those semantics that you don't have on a traditional database. You can also do a resolution change. Maybe you are getting a lot of metrics and you want to only, I don't know, once the data is old, you want to keep only data for a 1 minute resolution, not per second resolution, things like those. So for all those things, built in on TimeStream. And the cool thing is, like, you don't have to worry about any servers. As usual, you pay for what you use. You use just SQL with some extensions, with some built-in functions for working with time series. And it's specifically designed for that use case. It performs very, very, very well. So that's what we have right now. I believe that was kind of, what I can tell you about TimeStream.
That was very good, Javier, for putting you on the spot. You did well. No, but thanks, Javier. I think it cleared up a lot for me as well. I was also trying to sort of understand, where TimeStream, what the implementations would be like. Anyway, folks, we are out of time. So I want to thank all of y'all for watching this. We have like Daily Push or Techie Thought. This is Live Bytes. Who else? Rudik's World. A lot of people in the chats, basically. Alex, Masha, just thank you so much for watching us. We are going to start the keynote, the closing keynote at awscommunityday.nl. Go there. It's you can sign up for free. You can also check out the great talks later on. The closing keynote starting right now, so do check it out. Anyway, from Javier and myself, thank you so much for joining. See you soon and catch us on stream sometime. Join us on twitch.tv/AWS.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, folks. See you. Bye.